Today's episode of the Fantasy Rewatchables is brought to you by The Rewatchables, which is a great movie podcast hosted by Bill Simmons that I produce. Once a week, Bill and a gaggle of Ringer guests rewatch a favorite movie of theirs and talk about why it's so great. You've heard the three of us on that show. We did Dodgeball, a true underdog story this summer, and then we also did Pineapple Express a couple years ago. That was great. It's been 5 years now I've been producing The Rewatchables. Isn't that crazy?
That's wild.
Every year I tweet out my favorite movies that I hadn't seen before that year because I got to watch 52 movies of the year. I usually have seen maybe like 15 of them, of the 52, I would say. And so of the movies that I had never seen before, my favorite this year, my favorites were Risky Business, Poltergeist, Body Double from 1984.
1884?
It's a Taylor Sheridan show.
It has Abe Lincoln on it. Yeah.
Twister, which I hadn't seen the original Twister. Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And
Twister.
Then, I know. And then The War of the Roses. Heifetz, of those movies, how many have you seen?
2.
Which ones?
Fast Times and Risky Business.
Risky Business was so good. It blew my socks off how good that movie was.
Wait, remind me, that's the Tom Cruise, right?
Yeah.
Is that the one where he does the dance? The famous dance? Speaking of blowing your socks off.
And it sucks because that scene ruined the perception of the movie because the movie is actually really good and interesting and thought-provoking and fun and stuff. And everybody's just like, oh yeah, Tom Cruise in his underwear, like running around. Anyway, I didn't tweet about the worst movies, but I was thinking about that, the worst movies of the year. I think it's Hereditary, which I had the worst time of my whole life watching. That movie
you were doing that
movie.
while we were there. We were in LA and you were like, I have to watch Hereditary in the morning. I'm like, what a horrible sentence watching Hereditary at 9 in the morning. Jeez.
It was 7 in the morning. I admit the movie is good and well done, but I had a horrible time watching it. I think the two worst movies, though, for me that I just think are not good is Purple Rain, the Prince movie, and then Searching for Bobby Fischer, the chess movie.
Oh, you didn't like that, huh?
I don't know. The
Did you
Prince
find
stuff,
him?
it's like when Prince is performing, it's good, but like that's just because it's Prince performing. The rest of the movie's terrible.
This makes me think I need to watch way more movies because I only watched 2 of those movies too that you liked, Craig.
Dude, Poltergeist. Poltergeist is really fun.
I don't think I've seen Risky Business all the way through. Twister, all-timer. Pretty
So
good movie. And then I have seen Fast Times at Ridgemont High, but it was like fucking ages ago, so I don't really remember it, to be honest.
Yeah. All classics. A lot of 80s and 90s gems in there, so catch up on that. But today we're doing the 2024 Fantasy Rewatchables. We're going to run through the best and worst moments of the real NFL season and the fantasy NFL season using all of our favorite categories that Bill has so graciously allowed us to steal, plus a few that we created on our own. So with that said, Ringer Fantasy gets an edge, makes a man miss, takes a shot, Rewatchables, the hero!
The hero!
All right, I'm here with my two best friends in the world, Danny Heifetz and Danny Kelly. I want to get right into it. We have a million categories to get to. Like I said, we're going to go through this rewatchable style, get into everything. So we're going to start with most rewatchable play of the season. A lot of options. I kind of wanted to run through kind of like from 10 to 1. I'm going to end with what I think is probably the number one of the season, the thing that will linger in my mind. I still think of the last 5 years, it's DK Metcalf chasing down Buda Baker. I don't even remember what game that was, if it was important, but that clip lingers in my mind forever. But I would say in reverse order, and after I'm done, you can come in and tell me what I missed or if my order's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Garrett Wilson's one-handed catch versus the Texans on Thursday Night Football was pretty nuts.
Oh yeah, that was good.
I would say like kind of Jaden Daniels couple, but he had the Hail Mary, obviously. He had that 3rd and 7 to Terry McLaurin in the fourth quarter. That was like the first time I was like, holy shit, this guy's like a guy. Jonathan Taylor fumbling at the 1.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I think the Lions fake fumble play. The Ben Johnson, Jared Goff fake fumble was sick.
Great one.
Kind of just the Will Levis surrender Cobra.
All the ones
stuff.
that aren't but make it sports.
Art but make it sports, I think is up there. And then as we get closer, my top 4 is the Josh Allen run up 2 with 2 minutes left to seal the win against the Chiefs. And Nance had that call. Nance was like, the play of the year. That's 4 for me. Number 3 for me is the Hail Mary to Noah Brown and the Tyreek Stevenson fuck up.
Yeah.
Number 2 is the Amari Cooper lateral in the snow to Josh Allen.
Oh yeah, good one.
Can I shout out a couple before you do number 1?
Sure. We have to all have the same number one.
Let me just shout out a couple once we do
shout
the
out
number
a
one.
couple. Yeah.
The other ones, the Lamar Jackson dropping a snap, picking the ball up in the backfield, running right, stiff arming Trey Hendrickson, who leads the league in sacks, and while he's stiff arming him, throw a touchdown. And then similarly, Baker Mayfield on like 4th and 14, holding Nick Bosa by the face with his left hand and throwing a touchdown with his right hand. Like those two were crazy.
We don't have a most rewatchable player, but like Baker's up there.
Yeah,
Baker's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then Ken Walker's double flip, which I'd never seen on a football field, where he got
suplexed
on Monday Night Football.
About that one,
and then he did a thing I'd never seen, and then he like reversed it. It looked honestly like a John Wick move where it was 2 wrestling moves back.
It looked like a fish flopping on the sand.
Yes, that was wild. And also the Kevontae Turpin, where he dropped a lot of drops. He dropped the kickoff return, and then picked it up, and then ran right up the middle for a touchdown.
Deshaun Jackson
to win the
remake.
Game.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was sick.
DK, are there any that we're missing that you have?
No, those are all the ones I had. I had Jane Daniels' Hail Mary for the win is going to be etched into my brain forever, mainly because of the Tyreek Stevenson shenanigans.
Dude, yelling at the crowd.
That was just classic. I just can never imagine like forgetting that. And then I think the other one that I had like circled is the one that we're all thinking of right now.
Well, also, wait. The Colts trick play parlay where they were completing 40% of their passes
That
and
one
tried
was
3
great.
passes
That one
on
was
one
great.
play.
Yeah, that's in the least rewatchable play.
Yeah.
The winner is obviously that really good Najee Harris run on 3rd and 6.
That was sick.
He looked great. No,
Yeah.
it's the Saquon revertal. Is that what we're calling it?
I guess.
I wanted to catch on. I think revertal is a great word
Revertal's
for what
pretty
Saquon
good.
did.
The backwards hurdle play. I've literally never seen a running back do that in any game on any level. Backwards hurdle a player while like moving forwards. It was just insane. Also, like all the accoutrement that came with that, like they would do like videos of like the sideline reacting to it, which is always so much fun. Even
They
like his
added
own
to play to
teammates.
Madden the next day.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
Oh
Whoa.
damn! Did they really? That's sick. Oh, they had to like code through the night to like fix.
Yeah. Do you know how good a play has to be from Madden to innovate?
Imagine like what engineer woke up at like 3 a.m. and they're like, "Hey, you need to add a backwards hurdle."
Yeah, this is.
God damn it. So do you have to, is that a part of like the juke package on Madden, or is that like a thing where you have to kind of turn one way and hit hurdle, and like, how do you do that in Madden?
You think I'm playing with the Eagles on Madden? I don't know. I never figured it out.
Heifetz just like crying as he's playing.
He does a dynasty mode, trades him back to the Giants.
God damn it. Yeah. Not only is the Saquon reverse hurdle, it's obviously the most rewatchable play of the year. I think we need to go a step further. I think it is one of the most rewatchable plays of my entire life, especially now in like what now counts as a rewatchable play of like in social media. Like obviously rewatchable play is different than a rewatchable movie. I think you have to separate regular season from playoffs. I feel like the most rewatchable play ever is the Odell catch. I don't know how many plays since the Odell catch have been more rewatchable than the Saquon reversal.
Like it's an iconic play. Yeah.
It is.
What's cool is I think that a lot of the best moments of the season are usually about like a game-winning play.
Right.
And not that those get forgotten, but usually the actual like mechanics of the play is not that memorable. It's just the moment itself. It's like, oh my God, Tom Brady, whatever, converts a pass to whoever on a crucial 3rd down. That was amazing. But Saquon, I mean, it's not like that play was that consequential. It's just that like 4 seconds, everybody in the world saw on the internet 100 times, and they'll never forget because they've never seen it before.
Yeah.
Every time I watch it, I just think about Mac from It's Always Sunny watching it and just immediately just doing karate. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's actually incredible.
How many kids in the backyard are like revertaling?
Oh,
like
100%.
Trying to revertal like a garbage can in the backyard.
Yeah, the amount of older brothers in the Philly area that started trying to jump over their little brothers backward. Like,
I imagine. So that's the most rewatchable play. I have a feeling Saquon's name is going to come up a lot on this show. Next up, what's age the best? Let's start with Danny Kelly. What do you have here for what's age the best?
All right.
He
So
aged
ironically, and this might be a sign from heaven that I need to reassess like how I do my job, but my take purges ended up aging very well.
Okay, but hear me out. I thought the whole point of the take purge is that we're not allowed to go back and reevaluate.
Well, the reason I'm reevaluating is because I was right, Craig.
Okay. All right.
No, but more truthfully though, like it makes me just want to lean in harder to like sort of like the gut things that we're talking about. Like this is what we talk about every year. It's like we don't want to fall victim to herding in terms of like, oh, I'm way different from what all the other fantasy analysts are saying.
No, we're into reverse hurdling. I thought.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
But like I had Bo Nix being a QB1 that panned out. He finished as a QB10. I mentioned that Kirk Cousins was going to suck. He got benched. I thought Chris Godwin would outscore Mike Evans, which he did before he got hurt. The other thing that I think is both aged well and did not age well was not worrying about injuries. Because I'm sort of like the nihilist guy who's like, don't try and predict injuries. You can never fucking do it. It's impossible to do. So just assume everyone's not going to get hurt. And Joe Burrow went nuclear. Devon Achane stayed healthy pretty much all year, and being high on him ended up being really good. He was the RB11.
His quarterback didn't, but yeah.
Well, that was not part of the equation necessarily. So I would say those are some of the things that I kind of picked out as like things that aged well. Obviously, the CMC thing I don't think aged well, but
I think the take purge overall, though, to your point, is a good example of something that, like, it is something worth leading into next year. Because, like, I think we all actually, the most extreme takes we all had actually did a lot well. Like, yeah. I was going through it myself, and I wrote down Marvin Harrison Jr. will be the 4th best rookie receiver. And he was.
Damn.
And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I don't know. It's
always the stuff in the back of your mind. I think essentially what I'm saying is just like we should embrace our deep, dark feelings.
Yeah, I said the Niners would finish 3rd in the NFC West and miss the playoffs. And they did.
Yeah.
Craig, what else did you have for what age the best?
Well, I have not trusting the 49ers injury reporting.
Yeah.
That aged really well for those of us who avoided Christian McCaffrey. Another one I had was, this was a big offseason narrative, not worrying about Kyron Williams or anybody on the Rams returning punts.
Yeah.
He returned 2 punts this year, which was less than the year before when no one knew or cared because he wasn't famous yet. And he had an incredibly quiet, awesome year. He was top 7 in the league. Kyron Williams had 16 touchdowns this year. So I don't give a shit when Sean McVay says that someone's going to return punts. Actually, every time they do, they either win the Triple Crown or they have 16 touchdowns.
When one of his skill players is returning punts, that's like, we got to fucking
what
smash
that means?
That
means he thinks they're really good.
Yeah. It means he trusts them.
Yeah.
You're not going to fuck up back there.
What do you have?
I have a pretty good amount. I want to start with what aged the best, the 2024 NFL draft. Aged really seriously. Well. Yeah. You have the most offensive players ever to start a draft. And those guys include, we might have gone, there's an outside shot, depending on Caleb improving and JJ McCarthy for the Vikings. There's an outside shot that's all 6 quarterbacks are good, which has basically never happened from a single draft. You have Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. Like, Malik Neighbors already has the single season catch record for the Giants, not for rookies, just period. Lad McConkey broke the single season record for receiving yards for the Chargers. Brian Thomas joined some list of 1,100 yards and touchdowns, whatever, with like Jamar Chase and Randy Moss.
Fantasy points of anyone.
Yeah, Brian Thomas. Yeah. And then Brock Bowers broke Puka Nakua's record for receptions by rookie, and he's a fucking tight end. And then on top, Joe Alt was a great Charger tackle this year. Joe Alt looks like a future All-Pro. And then on top of it, in this offensive draft, the defenders are awesome too. Jared Verse looks like incredible. Like this really does look like we already can point to like maybe like 8 or 9 future All-Pros at the end of the rookie. Like that.
Chop Robinson looks great. A lot of the corners look good. Yeah.
Quinion Mitchell, crazy. I've never looked at a draft at the end of a year and been like, oh my God, like that looks like incredible. Yeah. So that one aged well. I also, I have a bunch of other ones here, but I have to mention, you know what else aged really well? Jackson Smith and Jigba being asked about Shane Waldron coordinating the Bears offense and saying, are we live?
Perhaps the worst answer you could possibly give when asked a question.
That aged really well when Shane Waldron got fired half the time.
Sure.
That's a good one. I'll throw out one. Me liking James Cook turned out to be a pretty good one. I think the James Cook thing was always an interesting proposition because Josh Allen has stolen so many of his touchdowns over the years. And this is like actually exactly what happened with Saquon Barkley this year. It's just like sometimes the quarterbacks just don't steal all the touchdowns. James Cook led the NFL in touchdowns. All players, all skill players, 17 touchdowns this year. Finished as the RB9, 981 yards rushing, 32 catches, almost 300 yards receiving. So I was a little worried about this one, liking James Cook, but I just kept thinking like this is the same. It's like a really good offense with a really good quarterback that are going to score a lot of points. Every time I watch him, he's like ripping off an explosive play. Last year, he's one of the top players in yards per carry. And I just I think I decided not to overthink it essentially. And I think that worked out.
What I liked about what you did, DK, is you were on him last year. And I remember I was off and it didn't work last year. He had like barely any touchdowns. I think he only had 5 touchdowns in the last 2 years combined or something crazy.
That was always the thing that like slowed him down. Yeah.
Yes. And you stuck to your guns and doubled down and it paid off. And I did not draft James Cook this year. So that did I think well.
Sometimes you're just lucky, obviously, that like I didn't expect him to lead the NFL in touchdowns. But also you have to remember touchdowns are really random in a lot of ways. It's one of the least common plays in NFL football, right? Like it's not something that happens a lot. You get like 3 or 4 a game, 5 a game. And so sometimes they go to some random guy. Sometimes they go to just only receivers. Some teams, Craig, this is like what you kept saying. It's like, oh, look, the Lions had another fucking rushing touchdown. It's like all the touchdowns go to the Lions running backs. But it's just, it's a random thing is what I'm saying. And so you can't always just be like, oh, this guy didn't score any touchdowns last year, so therefore he won't do it this year.
Heifetz, what else you got?
The Panthers taking Bryce Young. Talking about something that aged really poorly and then like just came back around by the end.
Because Andy Dalton got in a car accident. Yeah.
Yeah, Andy Dalton's car accident aged really well. That's a good call. Maybe it was Bryce Young.
But yeah, no, that's a great one. I can't believe how much better he looks. It is like truly one of the biggest night and day reversals. It reminds me a lot of Jared Goff. You guys remember Jared Goff's rookie year? It was truly one of the worst rookie seasons of any quarterback, especially like highly drafted quarterbacks we've ever seen. Like if you look at the statistical breakdowns of it, this was when he was under Jeff Fisher. And then Sean McVay came in, props to Sean, totally turned around Goff's career. And turned him to one of the like better pocket passing quarterbacks in the NFL. I think like Bryce Young, the way he looked, he was so much more confident. He was so much more dialed in, on time, making like those out of structure plays that was like a big part of the reason we were so excited about him coming into the draft. He just did everything. It's so weird how a guy can just like flip a switch and all of a sudden he's like, oh wait, I'm back to who I was supposed to be and who I was like in college. So yeah, obviously that was super exciting for Panthers fans, I'm sure.
It's definitely just like a lesson to not overreact to things. I mean, I had it as a what age the worst, which was declaring Bryce Young a bust and CJ Stroud a star.
Yeah.
Like it's essentially just, you should probably just fade whatever the narrative was after year one and you'll probably like make money.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally agree. What else? Do we have more?
You know what else aged really well? Arthur Smith playing Jonnu Smith over Kyle Pitts.
Ooh, good one. Yeah.
Jonnu Smith, top five season as a tight end in fantasy.
Love that.
Maybe Arthur Smith is the key. I don't know.
Well, sometimes coaches know a little bit more than us fantasy podcasters. I'll admit that,
Wow.
Sometimes.
Whoa, DK.
I think here's the key, Heifetz. You can't assume it, but sometimes it does happen, Can't always assume.
I think you should assume it, but sometimes it doesn't happen.
I think I would go.
This
with
was
the
a big deal
one.
when I was running Field Goals, the Seahawks blog. There was a big deal. One of the rules at the blog that we moderated was no appeals to authority, which is essentially saying, well, if the coach thinks this is right, therefore it's right, because coaches get stuff wrong all the fucking time. You can't just make the assumption every time that they know what they're doing. Coaches do stupid shit all the time.
Can I tweak that?
Well, of course, it's actually the opposite, is what you're saying.
No. I'm saying I think that
it's the reverse.
There's a Ted Lasso element where sometimes it's worth being like, and I'm bad at this too, but I think sometimes it's worth being curious and not judgmental, because I think sometimes, and something I want to do more this year and going forward, is when coaches do something, you're not considering what information do they have that we don't, that is making them make this decision. For example, Kyle Pitts sucks. Like, you know what I mean? Like for example, we're like, oh, just play Kyle Pitts. And it's like, well, it's weird that 2 different coaching staffs decided he should play 2/3 of the snaps. Maybe
and not only
he's
that,
the problem.
And that the quarterbacks on the field are also just not throwing to him when he's on the field.
Yeah, like last week when we're like, why is Sean McVay benching Matt Stafford? Maybe because Matt Stafford's fucking like, I don't know. Maybe it's if you took his shirt off, you'd see all the car crash bruises. Yeah, he can barely walk. Maybe that's why. You know what I mean? So anyway.
No, there's a gray area we can live in. That's fine.
All right, let's go to what's aged the worst. I'll give a couple first here. We kind of mentioned this before, but the idea of can't miss generational talents in this draft.
Seriously.
Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr. Can't miss. I would On the binary scale, they are misses right now. And I know we just said like you can't judge everything by year one, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, whatever. But it's just always good to have that grain of salt and kind of reset my brain every draft season. Anytime there is a guy, Kyle Pitts is a good example.
Mm-hmm.
Can't miss picks are like 50-50, you know?
If they're not 50-50, but if you
terrible.
If you include injuries, no, really. If you include injuries and you go through every sport and if you include injuries, can't miss guys miss like a third of the time. Like if you look like Bryce Harper makes it in baseball, but Steven Strasburg, if you include the injuries, is a miss. Andrew Luck's a hit. But like if you include the injuries, like is it like you know what I mean? Like 5 years.
Seems like maybe we should stop saying can't miss.
They miss a lot.
Yeah, it's kind of pigeonholing us a little bit.
Jadeveon Clowney was a miss. Like the biggest, like if you judge them by how much of a can't miss the prospect they were, I don't know. It's actually insane.
It is it does, Craig, you mentioned it's like you're going to reset your thinking at every draft. It's like I always have these visceral reactions to like hearing someone's hot take about some player X. And it's like, oh, they're the best whatever in this class. And my first visceral reaction is always like with the group, like, oh, that's ridiculous. But it's like, no, nobody knows anything. Like, why am I reacting this way? It's like what Heifetz said. I should just be more curious than judgmental. Why do I have these visceral reactions? It's like, and I'm trying to actually get better about this. I think I'm going to try to have much more open mind going forward about things. But like, I'll hear, you know, like grand takes from someone about like the order of whatever these guys would be drafted in. And it's like, I should just like, okay, what's like, what can I learn from this? Like, should I go look at this guy a little bit more or whatever, instead of being like, oh, that's ridiculous. Like, I don't know why I have that reaction.
Strong opinions loosely held is my philosophy in life. And to be honest, it goes the other way too. It's not just that the can't miss generational talents are always going to hit. You have to know that, but it's also the other way where guys that everybody thinks are going to suck sometimes are pretty good. I don't know how many every 2 years there's a quarterback, a Bo Nix, a Justin Herbert, Josh Allen that nobody thinks is going to be good, Lamar Jackson, and they end up being great. So I'm personally not super excited about Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. Maybe I should Costanza that and do the opposite, because it truly is a situation where nobody knows.
I tried to do that, Craig, a little bit with the Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, I forget, there was a couple other random dudes in that
Desmond
class.
Ritter,
the guy from Ole Miss.
Matt Corral.
Yeah. Matt Corral. I tried to do that with that class and that didn't work out well.
Yeah.
So
there still is a level of talent you need to reach before you can start considering it. But yeah. We have to shout out Danny Heivitz's Joe Burrow skepticism. We have to.
The water bottle gate thing.
Did that age well? No. I will. The only point I push back on is the bottle gate thing.
I will take the blame for water bottle gate.
Watergate was the stupidest shit in the world.
You know what's funny though?
Don't put that on me, Ricky Bobby.
That's not Heifetz. That was me.
People swear on my life.
I'm not blaming Heifetz.
Well,
I'm blaming people on the internet that pissed me off because they said he was cooked based on a fucking water bottle.
You know what's funny is I was talking to my two I can never say it. Brothers-in-law?
Yeah.
Brother-in-laws. Brothers-in-law.
Brothers-in-law, I think.
You need a better word for that.
And we were talking about the Burrow wrist thing, and one of them was like, oh, yeah, he couldn't lift up a water bottle, right?
Yeah, I know.
No, but this is like a game of telephone.
It's how misinformation spreads online.
I know.
Exactly. Right?
Burrow,
you couldn't pick it up.
The annoying...
he took ivermectin or something, and it fixed his wrist, right?
Oh, God.
Go ahead, Heifetz, sorry.
No, nothing. Yeah, I don't think it didn't age well that I was like, don't draft the Bengals. And then Joe Burrow led the league in yards and touchdowns, and Jamar Chase won the Triple Crown. That was bad.
Okay. My turn for mea culpa. Picking Josh Palmer over Ladd McConkey.
That could have been an all-time pick if you just would have meant McConkey. Because we talked about it many times. We're like, one of McConkey or Palmer is going to go off. Probably should have chose like the really good rookie, but.
Yep, I took the guy who I thought was solid, who had been there and didn't want to put the risk on a rookie. And that was a huge miss because Ladd McConkey was awesome and had 200 yards in a playoff game this year.
I think, though, I will say people are pissed about the Palmer thing, which I get, but like, and honestly, it doesn't matter because he was such a late pick anyway. But the fact that we were pretty high on, or relatively high on like the Chargers passing game being productive and providing fantasy value, I think that did age well.
Yeah, not overreacting to the like nobody on the Chargers is going to be fantasy relevant catching the ball.
Here's something that aged really poorly for me. I was really excited about CJ Stroud and I thought Joe Mixon was going to suck. That did not age well. Joe Mixon, basically, like, if you looked at any of the stats that he was like late in his career with the Bengals, was like one of the worst running backs in the NFL. And he came over to the Texans and was freaking awesome. He was like really good. He finished as the RB5 in points per game. He not only got a ton of volume, but he also just looked awesome. He was like creating explosive plays. Their run game in general was like pretty terrible by the end of the year. But from a fantasy point of view, Mixon was one of the better picks you could have made this year. So that's I was really wrong on that one. It's
fading all of the veteran running backs who changed teams.
That's a good call. Yeah.
We should probably, honestly, the name of this category should be this year Derrick Henry's going to fall off What's Age the Worst award.
I have one on that note too. You know what else aged the worst? The Giants making a reality TV show where they told Saquon Barkley to kick rocks.
Yeah. That didn't go great.
Why? If someone calls you, then like, why don't you call us?
The John Mara, I won't be able to sleep at night if he's on the Eagles award.
That aged well. That aged well. I would argue that would actually
that's just
prescient.
Yeah, it was.
Oh my God. Subtle foreshadowing. So funny.
Another one I have here is tossing Anthony Richardson in with Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson.
Yeah,
it's kind of like
a little bit
fantasy
cart before the horse there.
Yeah. That didn't age well. I remember we were in person in LA, and I think I really was the one. I think me and Heifetz were convincing DK that Anthony Richardson needed to be considered right with Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson.
We were doing a Yahoo fantasy football draft with the two of us and some Ringer NFL guys, and then Bill and Russillo were there, and Russillo could not log into the Yahoo draft. And like he joined the wrong draft, actually. Like
I don't know what draft he was in.
People. I don't know what he was in. A different draft.
So some 11 other dudes were stoked.
Yeah. So he's like logged out of the link. He can't log into his account. It was a very boomer thing from Russillo. And he's sitting there, and like Richardson comes up, and he's like, I don't understand what people see with Anthony Richardson. Like he hasn't played 17, 16 games in the NFL. He's played 16 games since leaving high school. Like, what are we talking about? And I will be honest, I didn't take him seriously because he couldn't log into the fucking Yahoo account. And if he had been able to log into the Yahoo account, I think he would have changed my mind.
Well, I think it's a perfect example. Look, obviously, I think Richardson did flash some as a rookie, much more than he did this year.
People who didn't play fantasy, like Bills, I mean, they play fantasy, but people who are more general NFL people, like Russillo, like Sal and Bill, nobody liked Anthony Richardson.
No, because the logic was like Justin Fields got replaced by the Bears, but he was top 5 as a fantasy guy the whole time.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was going to say. I think Richardson was a perfect example of fantasy brain and how when you're in our world of like thinking about fantasy constantly,
100%.
Obviously the rushing is so important, but you have to have a certain level of bar of ability to pass the football, or else you're just not going to last. You're not going to be the starter for very long. He got benched this year. Like this was like a top whatever pick. There's a lot of reasons for that. But like part of it was that he was completing like 40% of his passes. You know what I mean? He couldn't fucking complete a pass.
Heifetz, what else do you have for What's Age the Worst?
Carolina giving up on Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, and then Baker and Darnold combining for as many wins this season as Carolina does in the last 5 seasons combined.
Did you see there's a photo online? I don't know where these guys are, but there's a photo of 4 dudes walking somewhere, and they all have a different Baker Mayfield jersey from different teams. It's like a Panthers, Rams, Bucks, Browns. It's unbelievable.
The other one I have, what age the worst? I have Caleb Williams texting the Bears rookie punter on draft night, you won't have to punt a lot while you're here.
That's
and
pretty good. He was, I think, third most punts.
Second most punts
in the NFL. Awesome.
Giving old quarterbacks with ruptured Achilles tendons $90 million guaranteed and or unfettered control of your franchise aged really poorly.
Yeah.
But then what's aged the best is then doing that and then drafting a quarterback in the top 10. That's his backup.
Yeah, that aged well.
Just in case.
Yeah. What are we talking about? What aged the worst? My initial reaction to the Penix pick, I guess. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I still stand by the logic. I stand by the logic of like from a process point of view, it was fucking weird, but like, I don't know. I
think we nailed it. I don't think any of us had a huge problem to pick. We were like, why did you do both these things together?
Right.
Which I still stand by.
Sure.
I mean, that was all pretty bad.
I have CJ Stroud sunning Caleb Williams at midfield after a mediocre 19-13 win and then going on to have a horrific season.
That's great. That's a good call.
Divisional round of the playoffs, baby.
Sure. I know. Yeah, he'll win the Super Bowl probably, so maybe it was all worth it.
The owner of the Jaguars, Shad Khan, saying this is the most talented roster we've ever had. Did not
Woody
age
Johnson
super
said
well.
it too for the Jets.
Oh God! Oh, you just don't ever say anything like in the offseason. Just let the season happen and then talk shit after.
You should never say anything. Really, is the
Says
is
the
the key.
podcasters.
Don't say anything. Don't tweet. Don't.
This
have
is the
a
problem
podcast.
now. Nobody wants. Yeah, everyone's afraid.
Well, on that note, the what else aged really poorly was the Jets taking a photo of Rick Johnson holding a phone in the Jets draft room. That also aged really poorly.
Oh God.
Many things on the Jets aged poorly.
Hmm.
We got any others?
Will Levis taking a bunch of advertising money for like the
Oh, that
mayonnaise
aged great.
stuff.
That was his only shot.
He cashed out.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I
that
feel
was
like
his only chance. You're
They're
just from,
still
you're
running
from the
them.
generation that
I know
doesn't like selling
I
out.
was seeing mayonnaise commercials with Will Levis like this weekend.
See,
like,
to that is to me, I think I figured out the biggest gap in our 12-year age gap is that you don't like that. And to us, the American dream is he got paid in the smallest possible window. He scraped the bottom of the barrel of the mayonnaise jar. Like there's no chance he ever has again to get.
okay,
a
but
mayonnaise
it
commercial.
aged poorly that he's like in all these commercials.
Yeah,
That is
true.
true. That is objectively
true.
correct.
I'm not
That's
saying he should not take money. I
But-
guess I'm
but-
just saying it just
yes.
looks bad when he's
It
like
does.
being
His
replaced.
decision to
Yeah.
kind of sell out and like lean into the mayonnaise thing for him has aged wonderfully because he got paid and he probably will never have a commercial again.
Right.
But in terms of what for the viewer, it's aged poorly.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay. The next up, this is a self-created category. The Dead Dove Do Not Eat Award for the most glaringly obvious thing you still fell for.
Don't know what I expected.
I have the Saints being the next powerhouse offense in the NFL
Oh,
after
that was
2
a good one.
weeks.
Just give me a Kubiak brother. I don't care which one it is.
We did a whole thing. Is this real? Derek Carr had the highest quarterback rating in the league. They are averaging 45 points a game. They had the most points in a 3-game stretch ever,
Mhm.
dating back to the one game from the year before. They were the 8th team since the merger to score 40 points or more in the first 2 games of the season. And everybody bought in. And it was,
Mhm.
it's so funny. It's my favorite thing when something completely out of the blue happens. It's so clearly an aberration, but nobody wants to be the one guy
Yeah.
to kind of hop off the train in case it keeps going. I remember, to be honest, making the parallel to the NBA this season, the Warriors started out like 10-2, and everybody was like, they replaced Klay Thompson with Buddy Hield, and it's working. This is actually better. I think this team could contend for a title, and now they suck. And it was kind of like a little bit of how we felt about the Saints. So the Cole Kubiak assance crashed and burned immediately, and we all should have seen that coming.
Heifetz, I remember distinctly Heifetz asking me, is this real? Danny, is this real? And I was like,
Yeah.
I kind of think it is. Like,
Yeah, they beat the Cowboys. We're like, fuck it. This is awesome.
fucking A. Oh, man.
The
They
Saints
finished
had
dead
more
last, by
points
the
in
way.
Dallas than Dallas did till like halfway through the season. Touchdowns.
Do you guys have a better one? What do you have?
Mine was like, we've already kind of covered it, but I was like thinking the guy who can barely complete a pass would be someone to bet on. Like, this is Anthony Richardson I'm talking about. He was drafted as a QB5 this year, 52nd overall. So like 4th, 5th round. And he finished as the QB 20 in points per game. Geno Smith, Derek Carr, Russell Wilson, Caleb Williams all outscored him in points per game.
Do you remember that play? It was week 1. I think it was like his 3rd pass of the season where he kind of stumbled and then launched a
Yes.
60-yard dart
Yes.
to Alec Pierce. If you traded him in that moment, you could have gotten probably any player in the league.
Yeah. 100%. Dude, his completion rate, Anthony Richardson's completion rate went down 10 points this year. More than 10 points.
My God.
59% to 47%.
The
It was like
reverse
12%.
Josh Allen.
Is wild. His rushing yards or his rushing fantasy points per game essentially stayed the same. Points per game stayed the same. He went from 8.9 as a rookie to 7.8. So it was like a little bit down, but his passing was just impossibly bad. So tough.
Heifetz?
Wondering if the Chiefs were good every week as they won 15 games and took the 1 seed.
Yeah, that's good.
That's a
Whoopsie-daisy.
tradition unlike any other.
Yeah, I had the expecting old guys coming off Achilles injuries would be good thing. Is like, why did we expect that to work?
What about this one doesn't really apply because it's this fantasy season is over, but with Sam Darnold now that we've watched the wild card round, it's kind of like dead Darnold do not eat.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, well. Okay, moving on here. This is the Chris Ryan thinks I kept this category the same because I love this category title so much. The Chris Ryan thinks Luke Wilson could have been Harrison Ford Hottest Take Award.
I actually have one right off the
good.
dome there. From you mentioned Sam Darnold.
Yeah,
Sam Darnold is the Mike Tomlin of quarterbacks.
Wow.
Ooh.
Can only do it in the regular season. Can't close.
Yes.
Falls apart in the postseason.
Beloved locker room guy. Motivator. Great catchphrases. I don't know if any of that's true about Sam Darnold, but
I don't know if I believe that, but I kind of wanted to just.
I mean, Mike Tomlin won a Super Bowl, but that stings. I'm not gonna lie. That's a good hot take. Here's mine. I think it was okay for Anthony Richardson to pull himself out of the game because he was tired.
Oh, come on. No.
Part of me is like, look, the issue was him saying it in the press conference after the game.
Yeah.
You ever been really, really tired? It's hard to do anything. He probably would have been terrible on that play if he had to throw it. You know what I mean?
What was it as a handoff?
This should happen more. Look, sometimes you see wide receivers who caught back-to-back big passes and are gassed and they tap their helmet and they jog out because they're tired.
Right. But that's not the quarterback.
He was really tired. Maybe he had like 3 straight runs. It's all right.
I'm just saying, like, that's fine. I understand, like, why you're defending it. But, like, quarterbacks do not do that. Full stop. Quarterbacks don't do it.
The quarterbacks don't have the body and running ability he does. He's carrying 400-pound men every single play. He was tired.
He should have said he had to take a shit or something. I don't know.
I understand it. I get it. He was tired. Sometimes it's really hard. Imagine sprinting a 6-minute mile and then someone's like, hey, go run a route. You're like, no, I'm tired.
I can't get behind this.
That's a hot take, TK. Come on.
I do. I like it, though. I appreciate that. I appreciate that it is like a well-crafted hot take.
I don't know how they don't get tired more often.
I know.
Football seems super tiring.
This should happen more.
This is actually my genuine take, is that it's wild that the amount of standing around that happens on the sideline of football games and in between plays, like it's wild that these guys it doesn't seem like they get warm at any point. Obviously, like during a long drive, like a defense will get worn down, but like quarterbacks just go sit on the bench for like 10 minutes after each drive. And like you're sitting there in the commercials, they just literally sitting there.
That's what the big jackets are for.
Yeah, but like you get so cold.
That's what the jackets are for. The Mad Men me.
So you never say thank you.
I feel like also, I've always felt this way. I feel like it's very obvious to tell what the next play call is going to be. Like if Alvin Kamara busts off a 58-yard run where he sheds like 9 tacklers and he's huffing and puffing and walking back into the huddle and he stays in the game, they're not running the ball to him. They never do.
Yeah.
And like,
but that's from before his legs weighed the same. Now his legs weigh the same,
And
he
now
doesn't
that
get
like,
tired now. Yeah.
His heart rate never goes too low. But I'm like, every time I see a receiver who just caught like a 70-yard ball, got chased down, and then he goes back and he's like panting, they never throw to him. He barely runs a route the next play. Or maybe I'm just thinking of George Pickens. I don't know.
Perhaps.
Here's my take. Josh Dobbs would have been a top 15 quarterback this year if he'd been a starter. I think the Steelers would have been better off in fantasy.
The Steelers would have been better off with Josh Dobbs?
The Steelers would have been better off with Josh Dobbs than Wilson and Fields.
That is the worst thing I've ever heard.
The Jets would have won 9 games with Josh Dobbs.
What the fuck? What did Josh Dobbs save your family? What happened?
I have no reason for thinking this other than that like weird several game stretch he had last year. Or
Josh Dobbs, the problem was when he learned the playbook, he was awful. He was way better when he didn't know any of the plays.
Dude,
great improviser, bad actor. Can't remember lines.
Yeah, improv.
I just think Josh Dobbs. There's something there. Here's my other take, and I actually feel this very truly.
Okay.
There's too much Hard Knocks. They should stop doing Hard Knocks.
So wait, do you dislike that the original Hard Knocks that happens every August? Are you still okay with that, and you don't like the expansion, the franchising of it?
I think Hard Knocks would be much better if it was a like standalone event type of thing. I feel like Hard Knocks is always on now. And there's like versions of Hard Knocks on every fucking streaming platform.
There's a preseason, there's an in-season, and now there's an off-season.
Yeah,
and Amazon has their own version
fucking
of it.
Well, Hard Knocks. I can't keep up with all this.
I feel like, not to be like, actually it's the opposite. The ones they came up with, like the original idea is let's get training camp and put it out like every week for 4 weeks.
Off-season one's the best one.
The other ones are better. The in-season and the off-season one, they should get rid of the August one. Kind of sucks, honestly. It's weird. Like
I just think they need to make it look like a monoculture thing again, where it's like, oh, we're watching Hard Knocks on X day of the week or whatever, and we're excited about it. So you think there's
too much content and people can't keep up, and it's actually ruining culture?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
maybe this isn't a hot take at all.
No, I like it. I think Heifetz is right, though. I think the summer one is the worst one.
The summer one, it's like, let's watch more TV about football in August. And I'm like, I don't know.
It's like, great, the same undrafted free agent who you think is going to make the team, and then he doesn't.
Yeah, the offseason one in June and July makes more sense.
Heifetz, did you give yours? I know you had the Darnold thing.
That was my main one. I mean, I don't even think this is a hot take. Dallas should have traded Dak Prescott to the Raiders in the offseason. That was a huge mistake that they did not do that. They signed him to this contract.
I was hoping they were going to trade him to Pittsburgh.
They should have. Like, everyone would be better off. Everybody would be better off if Dak Prescott went to Steelers or the Raiders or even the Dolphins. Like, I think everyone would be better off in that situation. And they should have done it.
I thought one of your hot takes was going to be that Jerry Jones should retire and become an actor.
Oh, no. One of my hot takes, I was going to do this later.
He doesn't need to retire to do that.
No, one of my hot takes is, I don't think they should, Jerry's right, they should not put the curtains up.
Oh, come the fuck on.
They should, don't put the curtains up. They should be able to figure out. You're the only, they play in the stadium. They play in the stadium. Figure out how to run the plays around the sun. It's like Lord of the Rings, the two buildings. Like, the whole thing is they figured out how to use the sun to their advantage. Jerry Jones is right. Like, that's why Mike McCarthy's gone. Like, figure out how to use the sun. It's like giving you gold here. You're not doing anything with it.
Also, imagine also if like all the Cowboys wore like dark visors, and imagine that as like a visual intimidation factor.
Exactly. Like
they're wearing sunglasses.
You need a medical reason to have the visors. The Cowboys should fake all these reasons that they need medical. Like, they all get the dark visors, run the plays, get the lighting right. Come on, this should be easy.
They have transition lenses visors. How cool would that be?
Yeah, dude. There's a lot of opportunity
here.
Yeah.
Jerry's a visionary. He beat the NFL. He built the NFL. Like, I'm just saying, come on, figure it out.
I feel like you're ascribing too much competence to this team, but that's fine.
They should use the sun to their advantage.
Use the sun.
They need to harness the power of the sun.
You use what you have in life.
All right, casting what ifs. This is basically things that could have been if injuries didn't occur or a trade didn't happen. Sliding doors moments. Heifetz, what do you have?
Can you imagine how many more games the Giants would have won if they had kept Saquon Barkley?
Like one more?
Yep. Yeah, nothing would have changed.
Like one?
Yeah.
I think I'd give him like an extra win, maybe.
If I defend the Giants for one in exactly one moment, for all the shit that Giants get for letting him go, nothing would have changed if they had kept him. I just want to point that out.
Except for the Hard Knocks moment would have not gone viral.
The Hard Knocks moment entertained everyone. Actually, everyone would have made fun of them for keeping him.
Right.
That's what would have happened.
Right.
I just want to point that out. Nothing would have changed.
I think the obvious question could be asked, what if the Bears had taken Jaden Daniels instead of Caleb Williams? Would Jaden Daniels have sucked?
Probably the best one. This is probably the best question.
Or would he have created absolute magic for Chicago? Like, this is like something I'm going to think about forever. It is just like if Jaden Daniels essentially had landed somewhere else, what would it be like? It's just a fun thought experiment. But I think obviously he probably would have been a lot better than Caleb Williams was.
I think that question gets to the essence of why football is like a mysterious, magical thing.
Yeah.
It's so hard to answer that question.
My what if was, what if Rashee Rice didn't get hurt? And then I kind of kept thinking about it. And this is the scenario I kind of built out in my head. I was so upset because I loved Rashee Rice this year. I was a big fan of his. I drafted him. He got hurt. Week 3, Mahomes tore his ACL by running into him.
Mahomes tore his ACL.
But then this was my thought process. This is how I kind of got over it. So Rashee Rice doesn't get hurt, which means the Chiefs don't trade for DeAndre Hopkins, which maybe means that he goes to the Steelers, fills in for Pickens after the injury. The Steelers then win the AFC North. They beat the Texans in round 1. They get crushed in the AFC Championship by the Chiefs. They re-sign Russ to $35 million a year. So I'm actually cool with it because I think if Rashee Rice doesn't get hurt, there's a chance that the Steelers re-sign Russ.
Craig's, the meme where it's like the futuristic thing. It's like the world if this had happened. Like Craig's life, if Rashee Rice had not gotten hurt, it would have been just like perfect and euphoric.
Can I give one more sliding doors?
Yeah.
I think if the Jets had not fired Robert Saleh, they actually would have made the playoffs.
Nah.
That's we're bordering on hottest take territory.
I know that I almost used it there. I know that sounds insane, but the Jets defense was so incredible when Robert Saleh was playing. They fired Robert Saleh. He'd given up 2 touchdowns in the last 3 games. And if they had fired Saleh, I really think they would have beaten the Bills that next game on Monday Night Football. They would have won the game, and then they would have gotten Devontae Adams. And if you just look at the schedule, I think if the Jets, they would have beaten the Patriots in week 8. They would have beaten the Colts in week 11. They would not have blown a 21-point lead in Seattle. You know what I mean? I think they went to overtime with Miami. Like, I really think that Saleh's defense is the difference in all those games. And not to mention the distraction of just like not even distraction when the coach gets fired, but like everyone has to move up a rung. So like everyone's actually doing less work on what they were doing originally. I really think the Jets might have won 10 or 11 games if they hadn't fired Saleh.
Maybe they should bring him back. Hire him again.
I almost sent you this tweet, Heifetz, but I didn't want to antagonize you. Joe Caporoso, who does Turn on the Jets, Badlands. He had a tweet. Essentially, it was just like, can we please stop like gaslighting people into thinking that this guy was a really good coach? Like, if you look at his like history throughout like this time as the head coach of the Jets, it's like they were constantly like underprepared. They were constantly making penalties. I don't have the stat, or I don't have the tweet for me, but it's basically just like, let's stop pretending like he was like this amazing head coach.
I disagree.
I just think it's like you've like mythologized him into being like this amazing head coach. It's like the Jets have fucking sucked the last few years. Like, what are we talking about? He
got fired in a game where Rodgers threw a pick 6 and 3 interceptions, and they fired the head
that's fine.
coach.
I understand like that specific context, but he was the coach. He was the head coach for several years. Like, yeah, and they were bad all the time.
I just don't think he had much control over the offense, and what he was able to control was impeccable like the entire time.
Also, seeing Aaron Rodgers go 4-13, most of it without Saleh, you're like, man, they went 7-10 with Zach Wilson with Saleh.
Yeah, exactly. Show me someone else who can do that.
There's a leap there, though, that Heifetz is making that I'm like,
they were the number 1 defense in EP per play when he was there. They were last when he left. So that's all I'm saying.
Speaking of leap, next award here, the biggest leap. Who made the biggest leap this season? 2023 was probably Nico Collins. This year, I have like 3 or 4 guys on this list. I think DK mentioned James Cook. I think you could argue as a guy who led the literal league in touchdowns as a skill player. Jahmyr Gibbs, man, kind of entered, I think, the new running back Mount Rushmore, which is forming. We always say that every 3-ish years, a new group comes along, a new group of 4, and things move pretty quickly. 2022, when the top 5 picks in the draft were Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, and Derrick Henry. That was just 2022. Those were the 5 running backs being drafted. And now, this year, or next year, I should say, it's looking like Bijan Robinson, Saquon, Devon Achane, Jahmyr Gibbs, and probably still Derrick Henry. But I think there's a chance that James Cook maybe enters that category soon. But I think Jahmyr Gibbs and James Cook, like making that leap and entering into that new running back Mount Rushmore are probably my 2 top guys.
The Gibbs one is a good one. I thought of him, but I was like, he was like a pretty high scoring fantasy guy last year.
He was
too. But like, I think you're right in terms of like his stature among fantasy players. Like, he is up there now as like an elite player. Plus, like, you know, I think he just looked better all around this year. He was just more confident, more in tune with the offense, like the way they utilized him. He's so explosive, so fun.
A couple guys I want to throw out a couple more nominees before you guys chime in. Jackson Smith and Jigba on the Seahawks quietly had an amazing year. Was the number 10 wide receiver in fantasy. He caught the 9th most passes in the NFL this year. He caught 100 passes. Yeah. And this guy was kind of like, after last year, I think there was a lot of questions about like, was this a miss of a pick? Is he going to be kind of like just another guy? He was great. Another wide receiver, Drake London, who we all joke, like, what's your favorite Drake London memory? It kind of has been working for a while.
He had one in week 2, finally.
He did. Drake London this year was the number 5 wide receiver in fantasy, which is remarkable. He had 100 catches, 1,300 yards, 9 touchdowns. And I think there's a chance that Drake London might be the best receiver no one's talking about. He's like, might be the next Keenan Allen, where he's just going to be 100 catches, 1,300 yards, 9 touchdowns every year. And nobody will discuss him as a top 5 guy.
Yeah, that's a great one.
And then honestly, Bryce Young for biggest leap. I mean, hell.
Yeah, true.
DK, what do you have?
I had JSN as my top one.
Yeah.
He had 100 catches, like you said, like last year. And I know that in Seahawks land, people were talking about like, oh, maybe this was a bust. He all he caught, like there was like a large portion of the season where literally they would bring him in for a play, throw him a screen pass behind the line of scrimmage. He'd get tackled for a 2-yard gain, and then he'd go back to the sideline. Like it was like literally for like 3/4 of the season, that was all he did. This was like the context, by the way, of why he was like so anti Shane Waldron at the time. We were just like, well, obviously, if you look at how they utilized JSN last year, like I would be pissed too if I were him. But he came in and he was like making huge plays. He was making really difficult catches. Run after the catch.
Is he the best wide receiver on the Seahawks?
I think he's the most consistent. DK Metcalf still has a lot of value to them in terms of like the gravity he brings as a receiver in that offense. It opens up a lot of things for JSN. But JSN is definitely, he's like a chains mover. He's really, really reliable. Like in key, crucial, high leverage moments, he's the guy you want to go to, I think. I trust him more than DK Metcalf at this point. And so he had a huge year. I think the other guy that you have to mention in this, it's not quite as high of a level in terms of like where he ended up, but like compared to where he was at the beginning of the year or last year, I had almost given up on Jamison Williams. I thought like maybe like he was just going to be one of those guys who was too much of a knucklehead.
That's a good one.
He came in like first 2 years first off, he was coming off an injury. When he got back, he got suspended for gambling. And then I can't remember the timeline, but basically he was injured. He's suspended for gambling. And then even when he was healthy, like they were barely using him. They were like working him in. There was all this like talk from the coaches, like he needs to learn the plays a little bit more. Like I just kind of got the impression he was a knucklehead. He wasn't really taking it seriously. Something clicked. The light went on. Dan Campbell talked about it all offseason. Like this guy is like night and day different than what we thought, than what he was last year. He's really bought in. He goes out there and he blocks, like all this stuff. And he was awesome this year. Actually went over 1,000 yards, which is kind of underrated. I didn't really feel like he did, but he has so many of these deep catches at it. He went over 1,000 yards on 58 catches, 7 touchdowns. I truly think he's one of the most scary players in the NFL when he touches the football, because it's like he could do anything. He's so fast. And he's such a fun weapon in this offense. So he made a huge
get alive.
Yeah, seriously.
It's like annoying that it worked out for the Lions.
Yeah.
They've hit on so many
How
players.
dare you?
Well, I love the Lions. I'm just saying more like, man,
Share some with the rest of us.
I will say though,
yeah.
I don't think it's an accident. The Lions, I think, have given more rope to their young players. I think a lot of teams, frankly, would have benched a lot of the players that they've dealt with, and they had patience with not just Jameson Williams, linebackers. There are a lot of players across that roster they had patience with that are delivering. Other teams would have benched. It's an intentional thing, I think.
Who do you have, Heifetz?
I think we have to make an exception to the rule. I mean, the leap is a Bill concept of when I would define as, or I think Bill is defined as when you put it all together.
Mm-hmm.
By definition, this is usually not a rookie. We have to make an exception. No offense to any of the guys you guys are talking about. The answer has to be Jaden Daniels. Like Jaden Daniels, if you need to win a football game, literally the answer of who you would pick if you have to win one game or one drive to win a game, the answer is Patrick Mahomes, in whatever order you want to put him. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels is 5th. I dare you to find a 5th quarterback you would put ahead of Jaden Daniels to win a football game. He's 24 years old. This is not usually a thing you give to rookies. Jaden Daniels, it's one of the most impressive rookie seasons I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
It's a great pitch, but sadly that is not what the segment is. So I'm going to have to deny that.
But he made but he did it. It's just you never see it from rookies. That's why you don't. It's just never a thing. But he has.
You broke the segment. That's what I was talking to Kyle Brand about. That he was like, when you're like, all right, who's the best team in the AFC right now? And someone's like, well, I want to talk about the NFC. It's like, no, you broke the segment.
but if you go in the league, who put it all together? It's Jaden Daniels.
Was his first
right
year?
There. I'll break it. All right, we'll tape it
You
back
broke
together. Fine.
I think it's probably JSN.
Yeah.
Good for you, DK. Congrats.
It was going to be Rashee Rice.
Damn.
But he got hurt.
And then the Steelers would have re-signed Russ, so maybe it was a good thing. Okay, Dion Waiters Award, which is the best waiver wire guy of the year. Heifetz, who is the best waiver wire guy of the year?
I have positions, but it's just Florida. It's the Bucks, number one.
Florida.
It's Baker Mayfield at quarterback. It's Bucky Irving at running back, and it's Jonnu Smith at tight end. Pick your poison. So going backward, first, the consistency with Baker is crazy. Baker was the quarterback, the fourth best fantasy quarterback on the year. He was the 4th best fantasy quarterback in the playoffs. He was the 4th best fantasy quarterback. It's the 2nd best fantasy quarterback in the championship. So I think it has to be Baker quarterback. Running
Baker
back,
won me a title.
Baker won
that.
people a title.
I think
He
if you're not doing this positionally and you're just giving it to one person, I think it has to be Baker.
I think it has to, again, number 2 quarterback in the championship. Just the consistency is so rare. Running back, though, it's Bucky Irving because
Mm-hmm.
he was barely drafted. And the reason he was drafted, I think he was cut like in a lot of leagues.
Right,
So
because he didn't really do much for a couple
the
weeks.
first month.
And what made it better, the reason, another good argument for Bucky is that for running backs, not a lot of running backs got hurt this year. So there wasn't a ton of like,
yes,
opportunities to grab these
it
guys.
was like Jordan Mason maybe had it for a second, then he got hurt. There wasn't a lot of backups that stepped up.
After week 5, Bucky Irving was a top 10 fantasy running back. And then again, the consistency, championship week, the players who scored 20 points at running back in fantasy week in the championship is Jahmyr Gibbs, who is a top 15 player. Jonathan Taylor is a top 15 player. Derrick Henry was a top 15, top 20 player. Bijan Robinson was a first round pick. Bucky Irving.
Yeah.
And then tight end, though, Jonnu Smith was the number 1 tight end in fantasy after week 10. Number 1 tight end in fantasy after week 10 was Jonnu Smith.
The other guy I was going to add, I put Bucky Irving as my pick. I think he's the guy. But Chase Brown for the Bengals, who, if you remember at the beginning of the year, Zach Moss was kind of their starter. They were really leaning on him for at least a few weeks. And I'm guessing a lot of people dropped Chase Brown at that point. But then Zach Moss got hurt, and he was already starting to be pretty ineffective, and they were already kind of like going to Chase Brown a little bit more. Zach Moss went on IR. Chase Brown took over. They utilized him like Kyron Williams style. Like he was getting 100% of the snaps. And from week 4 on, Chase Brown was the RB7 in points per game.
Chase Brown is interesting because I feel like it's kind of similar, I guess, to Bucky Irving, where because he wasn't like a highly sought after prospect, he's been really good. But it's like it takes an extra year for people to admit that when you're not a first round pick.
Yeah.
So like if Chase Brown and Bucky Irving were top 10 picks in the draft, I feel like next year they would be top 15 picks in fantasy. But because they don't have that kind of like resume behind them, I think it's going to be harder for people to come around. They're anchored to kind of like who they were supposed to be.
Remember James Robinson?
Yeah.
I just always think about that because he was an undrafted free agent, came in. I don't remember where he finished in the year, but it was like really high.
Yeah.
And then there was an injury or two that kind of like he ultimately like fell off completely. But I just think the problem and the reason this happens is because these lower drafted guys are more replaceable for teams. It's just easier to replace them because of where they were drafted. It's just a simple fact of the matter. But that doesn't take anything away from these guys. I'm just saying like I think what people are sticking to is like the teams are not going to move on from a first round pick. Like Najee Harris is still the freaking starter for the Steelers, you know? And so there's like some more security there, I guess.
Next award. This is the Ruffalo Hannah Rubinek Partridge Overacting Award. For our purposes, this is kind of who is fool's gold, who has kind of the crazy over the top plays, but they're not actually good.
I think there's one answer for this.
Is that right?
Well, there's multiple probably candidates, but in my mind, there's one guy. Who do you want me to say it or do you want to go through the guys?
Mine is the combination of Jameis Winston and Jerry Jeudy.
That's actually a really good answer.
I had that one as well. Jerry Jeudy being 6th in receiving yards, and I'm like, is he even good at football?
I don't think so.
Or is he just good at asking Jameis Winston for the football?
It's just the right situation. It's like Michael Madsen acting in Tarantino movies. It's like he's not good, but he's in it. It works in the movie. DK, who is yours?
That's actually a better answer. I rescind what I said before, but Nick Westbrook-Akine had nine fucking touchdowns on 32 catches.
He literally had 8 touchdowns in 8 games. And
Stud.
7 weeks in a row, we said that won't happen again. And then the one time we said he will score a touchdown this week, that was the week he didn't score.
The Jerry Jeudy, Jameis.
And then I think the week
experience.
after he scored again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it.
Okay. Next award here. This is the one injury mulligan. If you could wipe away one injury this season, who would it be? DK.
This was a tough one for me emotionally. I chose Chris Godwin. I just think it would have been really fun to. He was just having such a great year. He seems like such a good guy. Easy to root for. Fun player to watch.
What did he say? Was it back to work, John? Back to work.
Back to work, Joe.
That's so brutal.
Joe.
Yeah.
God.
So I think I would choose Chris Godwin.
It also sucks because like the Bucks weathered the storm without him. Jalen McMillan came on, and if Godwin was there, maybe they win the playoff game. Things are more fun. Mine was Aiden Hutchinson.
I know. I had that as
that's good.
I had that as a sliding doors thing too. Is like if Aiden Hutchinson hadn't gotten hurt, I wonder what this Lions team would look like.
I know if the Lions lose because of injuries, and then they lose Ben Johnson and Glenn, and I don't know. This was a weird defensive player of the year award. Trey Hendrickson, I think, has 17.5 is the most. Nobody else has more than 14. Dude, Aiden Hutchinson had 7.5 in 5 games. Like he was on pace for 25. He was on pace to break the record. So
yeah,
I would have taken that.
That one's tough.
Yeah.
Also, Rashee Rice, I think, is another one. Not not on the same level as like overall impact, maybe, but like, yeah, I think he could have had 1,200 yards, 10 plus touchdowns.
Heifetz, did you have one, or did you wish Drew Lock got hurt?
I did during that Colts game when they won the goddamn game. Man, I mean, no, for an injury mulligan, I think it's either Christian McCaffrey, the Achilles. I mean, again, I think it's worth remembering. A lot of people took him number one.
I forgot about him.
We moved him down. I think we were like the only fantasy place basically that like didn't have him number one because of this issue. But I don't think we even had any idea. I mean, you got to remember, people took him number one in the draft and found out on Monday Night Football of week 1, 90 minutes before the game, that he was like, yeah, by the way,
when they couldn't put anyone else in. Yeah.
Yeah. That calf injury, that's actually his Achilles. And like, that's how you're those are the things that make people want to stop playing fantasy football.
Yeah.
Kyle.
Okay. Best that guy award for for our show. That guy is on that team. This is like when your dad walks in and he squints at the TV and he's like, Joe Flacco's on the Browns, which was last year. I guess you could have said the same thing
on the Colts.
Yeah, Joe Flacco on the Colts. It's just always Joe Flacco.
Yeah. Joe Flacco on the Jets.
It's kind of a weird year because a lot of really like this is a tough year for semi-casual fans of the NFL because it's a tough year for dads watching games with their sons because it's like Derrick Henry's on the Ravens, Saquon Barkley's on the Eagles, Josh Jacobs is on the Packers.
Like the NIL is ruining football.
It's like Devontae Adams is on the Jets. It's like what? Kirk Cousins, you're like, Kirk Cousins is on the Falcons. You can keep going. I don't know. Adam Thielen, people are like, he's on the Panthers. I thought he retired. Stephon Diggs showed up on the Texans for 8 weeks.
Zach Ertz is on the Commanders?
Yeah. there's a lot.
Austin Eckler.
Oh, great one. Austin Eckler.
Oh, that is a good one, yeah. I put the Dante Pettis on the Saints, Marcus Valdez-Scantling on the Saints, Cedric Wilson on the Saints. The Saints receivers is really what I'm saying.
There are two. This is a little more of a deep cut, but that's in true Rewatchables fashion. Teddy Bridgewater's on the Lions.
Oh, that's right.
Like, when they play this weekend, they're going to go to that shot of him on the sideline.
I thought he was coaching high school football.
He was.
He did. They won the state championship in Florida, and he signed with them.
He's like, I'm not really doing anything. You want to hang out?
The Lions were literally like, yeah, we just kind of want him in the locker room for this run. They signed him like 2 weeks ago. It's insane.
Dang.
I forgot about that, Heifetz. When I saw that story, I thought it was like one of those fake accounts, like making up a story. And I was like, oh, they really did sign him.
He's literally there for vibes.
Yeah.
Like he's just coach the season.
He's like how they have, how like teams will have like that, what's that guy? The mentalist guy? What's his name?
Oh yeah. That Oz the mentalist.
Oz the mentalist, like come in and like lift everyone's spirits by like doing this crazy shit.
Dude, do you think we could get Oz the mentalist at the Super Bowl? He's got to be ready to row, right?
Oh man.
Wait, I was going to ask more about Oz, but go ahead.
No, please go.
What does he do?
He does magic tricks in front of football
teams.
No,
it's he purports to be able to like read your mind by like the micro expressions you use and stuff. It's like really fucking wild. I don't know what it is.
He's like the new David Blaine. Yeah. He just does shit you can't explain.
He can predict what you're going to say.
Therapy stuff, or is it more like I'm going to make this apple disappear?
He asks you like your deepest, darkest thoughts, and then has it written on the card already. But it's like,
it's like I think in the preseason, it's like they will say predict this, whatever. And
I gotta say,
yeah,
magicians. I don't know. They get a bad rap, but every time I see a magician, actually like a good one, I am so blown away and truly don't understand how any of it works. It is like one of the last things where I'm like, I genuinely have no idea how they did that. I saw one in Vegas last year for the Super Bowl. I was at a restaurant. Some guy, he made a card show up on the inside of the wine cellar in the restaurant. He threw the deck of cards at a glass window, and one card stuck, but not on the side that the card hit. On the other side of the glass, the card stuck. That was the card I had picked. And he like made a Coke can fill after pouring it out by just rubbing his hand on it. Like I
I love it. No,
Like,
blows
you
me
start
away.
feeling a little religious with these
yeah,
things.
no, you're like, oh, there's wonder left in the world. Though I loved when David Blaine had his resurgence and he would go to famous people's houses and like he would go to Will Smith with like his, with Jada and like his
The
kids.
Harrison Ford one's
And
the best.
Oh yeah, and he just starts sticking like a letter opener through his fucking hand, and Harrison Ford's like, "What the fuck is going on?"
That's not even magic. It's just pain tolerance.
Yeah, it's just like I'm gonna just stick this through my fucking hand.
He had one where he somehow made a playing card, like get lodged inside of a grapefruit that had yet to be cut. And he had Harrison Ford cut the grapefruit open and discover the card. And Harrison Ford just like looked at him and said, "Get out of my
Get
house.
out of my house. Get off my plane."
What? That's so funny.
Dude, those Blaine specials, if anybody wants a good hour and a half, they're so entertaining.
They're
My
incredible.
house.
Get off
think I've
my
seen that
plane.
Ugh.
The other
I didn't kill my wife.
Yeah, I don't care.
I think about that scene a lot. I don't
It's-
care.
I
It's a
don't
lot.
care.
That's an all-time line.
Improvised.
Oh, really?
Oh wow, that's
That's
sick.
great.
The only other that guy I have to shout out because he deserves it is, did you guys know Mercedes Lewis is in the NFL?
Oh,
Damn, is he really?
Is he on the Bears or the Packers?
Mercedes Lewis is on the Bears.
Yeah.
He
yeah.
caught it.
He's
He's the
on an NFC North team.
oldest person to catch a Mercedes Lewis caught a pass this season. He's 40 years old.
Damn.
The only active player older than him is Rodgers. Do you know the next youngest person to catch a pass? He's 40.
Jimmy Graham.
No, it's Kelsey at 35. Like no
Really?
one from 35 to 40 caught a pass, and then Mercedes is 40. Mercedes
Wow.
Lewis was drafted in 2006. That is the same year as Matt Leinart
Wow.
and D'Amico Ryans.
Oh,
Whoa.
And Mercedes Lewis is still in the NFL.
He's like older than like half the coaches in the league.
yeah.
Yeah.
Look, pal, you can't tell me what to do.
He's 2 years older than McVay.
That's a good one. All right, the Vincent Chase Award for Are We Sure This Guy is Good at His Job? Brees Hall.
Craig,
you
you were on this from the very beginning, and I scoffed at it initially. And then there was a moment in a game, it was like week 3 or something, and he got like caught from behind.
It was the Bills game on
He was going to score a touchdown, and he like basically just was running in mud.
Anti-juice.
And I was
no
like,
juice.
Fuck, Craig is right.
Something happened to this man. I should have put that in What Stays the Best. I forgot. I think even Scott Barrett then like looked into it and found out that like he's not reaching top speeds anymore. He's not
Yeah.
explosive.
Yeah.
It looks like he's got.
Well, he was like, there
Cement
was like
shoes.
some injury, something or other in the background. But yeah.
I don't know.
But you're right. You were right. I scoffed hard at it. I was like, Craig, shut the fuck up. Like, he's so good. And then I saw it and I was like, oh, God.
You're
that's
smart.
right.
I'm dumb.
Yeah.
You're the best. I'm the worst.
The other guy, I don't even know if this is Are We Sure? I think we might know, but Bobby Slowick. The
Yeah, I
offensive
put that.
coordinator for-
That's what I put.
I know the Texans just won a playoff game, but they literally turned the ball over more times than they scored a touchdown. So I'm not really going to acknowledge that Bobby Slowick did a good job.
Fair. Okay. Speaking of,
That's all you guys have for. Are we sure this guy's good at his job?
Heifetz has like a list from Billy Madison.
Oh yeah, I got a list of a lot of
He's
I
so
got-
I kind of wanted to pick like the top 1 or 2 rather than list 15.
How about Bill Belichick coaching college football? We sure that's going to go well?
No. In
That's
fact,
kind
I'm
of
not.
an unanswerable question, isn't it?
Okay, all right, fair.
What else you got?
I thought you want to do the list. I just
No,
I'll
hit me with
give
a couple.
I'll give it to Bobby Slowick gladly. I will gladly give Bobby Slowick the Vincent Chase Award.
All right.
Well, who else you got? Now I'm curious.
Give me
now
a
I want to
couple.
fucking know.
Wet my beak a little bit.
People I'm not sure are good at their job. Jerry Jeudy. Wet the beak.
What
And
my
bend the knee
beak
or
is
incredible
like
turns.
worse than catbird seed.
No, Wet the beak's incredible.
Wet the beak plays. Wet the beak
Wet the
plays.
beak is incredible.
Wet
That's
my
not,
beak a little bit.
Wet the beak is incredible. Timeless.
Oh God.
Jerry Jeudy. Dude, George Pickens. Are we sure George Pickens is good at his job?
Yes. We're sure. I'm kombucha girl. What? I'm sure he's good at catching the ball and playing wide receiver, but I'm not sure he's good at wanting to play wide receiver and being a teammate.
So no, he's not good at his job. If you're
Okay.
not, if you're like good at your job, but you don't want to do your job and don't like the people you work with, you're probably bad at your job.
Okay. Sure. I love him though.
He's good enough to be tolerated.
The only other Vincent Chase person I have is I think Mike Tomlin has reached Bill Belichick status, where he is obviously like an elite
I was hoping you didn't do this.
platinum tier coach. But Mike Tomlin, the GM, I know he's not as much of a GM as Belichick was, but he's close. Mike Tomlin, the offseason acquisition person, is beginning to hurt Mike Tomlin, the coach. Like the lack of prioritizing quarterback at some point, like the entire Matt Canada thing where everyone was making fun of Matt Canada for the last 2 seasons. And as if Mike Tomlin's not fucking his, like the boss of Matt Canada, dictating Matt Canada what to do. Like how many years in a row can Mike Tomlin oversee an offense that is horrible or not prioritizing quarterback until we're like, maybe Mike Tomlin's making bad moves in the front office.
Yeah. What's Matt Canada doing? Does he have a job?
Yeah, I was going to ask that exact same thing.
He went coaching
to Canada.
Is he coaching Teddy Bridgewater's JV team? He is unemployed.
Yeah. Well, he's probably getting paid by the Steelers.
Yeah.
Probably getting
that's what I'd be doing. If
$750,000 to just fucking play golf every day this year.
Okay. The Butch's Girlfriend Award for the weak link of the film, which for our purposes, this is who ruined your fantasy season? For you, who was the worst player of the year? Last year, Kadarius Toney and Arthur Smith, I believe, were the 2 most popular selections. This year, I would like to begin with Mr. CJ Stroud. People say Cooper Kupp, perhaps, because he was up and down and kind of sucked in the fantasy playoffs, but you didn't even make the fantasy playoffs with CJ Stroud. If you play in a 2-quarterback league, you were stuck with him the entire year. And in fantasy drafts, he was like the 5th, 6th guy off the board. Last year, he was the 8th best quarterback in fantasy. The vibes were high. They got Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell's back. You had that lasting image of him shredding the Browns defense in the playoffs against the defensive player of the year, Myles Garrett. It all sounded great. Joe Mixon as well comes in. This year, CJ Stroud showed up, played every game, and was the QB 28. He averaged 12.9 points per game, which is legitimately like a staggering number. Significantly less than Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, and Russell Wilson.
He's unstartable in 2 quarterback leagues.
He was the lowest scoring quarterback in the league that wasn't either a backup or a starter that was eventually benched. So essentially, of a guy that a team was sticking with, he's the worst quarterback in the league. In fantasy.
Yeah.
I think
QB 28.
That's an accurate case.
Anyway, who do you guys got?
I had Kupp, but secondary to that, I would say Caleb Williams. And I'm speaking from a 2-quarterback league point of view, which is what most of my leagues are. Because, number one, just roundly disappointing from a personal point of view. I was very excited to watch him play football this year, and he was very disappointing in a lot of ways. I think he flashed enough to be like still encouraged enough for the future, but like especially relative to Drake May and Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix, like he was very disappointing. So many sacks. But from a fantasy point of view in particular, it was feast or famine every week. And it is so frustrating. So I'm just looking at like his scoring log or his game log or whatever. It's like 7, 17, 11, 23, 28, 9, 9, 6. 16, 26, 26, 14, 9, 22. It's like, it was just like a fucking roller coaster and I was stuck on it. And he did have enough good games to kind of like keep you hanging on long. You know what I mean? Like you're not like giving up on him and dropping him.
Just enough to wet the beak.
100%. It was like just enough to keep you like attached. And then he fucked you in the fantasy playoffs with a 6-point game and a 10-point game. Or I guess like a 9-point game in week 15, 22 and 16, which was fine. And then a 6-point game in week 17. I may never forgive him. It was just like very disappointing. And I let it leaves like a very bad taste in my mouth from the rookie year. I was very high on him. Obviously I was excited about what he's going to do. And you know what? He still might turn into a really good quarterback, but like this was a super disappointing year.
Nothing stings more than investing everything into a guy in fantasy and he disappoints you. It takes a good 2-3 years to get over that.
Yeah. So this is like I told you guys, I think on an earlier pod, I'm like, I'm not going to have anything to do with him next year. Hopefully he's good. Hopefully he's like all over the place and awesome. But I just don't want to be on that ride.
Heifetz?
I mean, Rodgers ruined the Jets and ruined all the players on the Jets. That's pretty tough. Got everyone fired in real life, ended your fantasy season, ended Brees Hall. Anyone who took Garrett Wilson was miserable all year. And I think they both qualify for the I can't bench him, but I don't like playing him. So I think he put everyone in purgatory. Yeah. Shanahan, the Niners had injuries, but Kyle Shanahan lied about it, which made everything worse. Like Kyle Shannon's the reason you took McCaffrey. Kyle Shannon, like Debo. I still think a lot of what happened at Debo this year was, I mean, he had pneumonia and they didn't fucking list him on the injury report. And like, you know, some pneumonia related slump that like no one really even knew he had pneumonia. But if you want actual players in your lineup, I would like to nominate 2 people. I would like to just throw out, without any further commentary, that Jalen Waddle had the same amount of fantasy points this season as Nick Westbrook-Akine.
I'm not gonna defend Jalen Waddle anymore.
Thank you.
He's
I'm going
awful.
to abstain.
I also
It's over.
I meant to say this earlier when we did what did you fall, like deadest dove do not eat, what did you fall for? Do you remember in the middle of the season when we renamed the two tight ends who outscored Kyle Pitts and a lie? And we were like, well, Kyle Pitts is playing well this season, make it Jalen Waddle. Do you guys know what happened to Kyle Pitts after we changed the name of the award?
He didn't score very many points.
No, in fact, I'm gonna revive it right now because players who outscored Kyle Pitts after week 11 and
after we renamed the category,
after we renamed the category.
This is fun.
I'm going to give you 4 players, and I chose them because these are all players that I think a lot of people thought were retired. 3 players who outscored Kyle Pitts after week 11 and a lie. Dante Pettis,
Jesus,
Van Jefferson,
Jesus,
Jamison Crowder, Robert Woods.
What team is Jamison Crowder on?
He's in the playoffs, baby. He's on the Commanders.
Is he on the Commanders? Okay.
Jamison Crowder was, when I worked for Washington 9 years ago, he was there.
No, he's like come back. Yeah.
Dante Pettis outscored Kyle Pitts since week 11.
3 of these guys
me
did.
That shit.
Dante Pettis, Van Jefferson, Jamison Crowder, Robert Woods, all outscored. One of them did not
Bobby
outscore Kyle
Trees?
Pitts after.
Oh, one of them didn't.
One of them did not.
Robert Woods.
Robert Woods.
It is Robert Woods.
Okay, yeah.
But Dante Pettis, Van Jefferson, and Jamison Crowder all scored more points than Kyle
Dante
Pitts.
Pettis outscoring Kyle Pitts is disgusting.
Yeah.
Just makes me rethink everything in my life.
Okay, half-ass internet research here. These are just going to be our favorite stats from the season. Last year, it was kind of Kenny Pickett facts only, which I loved and hated. I'll throw it to you guys. List your favorite ones, and then I'll come back with some. DK, what do you got?
This is ironic because I did this research before the Chargers game, but what I wrote down was that there was some rare efficiency from the quarterback position this year from Justin Herbert and Lamar Jackson in particular. Justin Herbert had a 0.6 interception rate, which was the lowest since 2018. He had 23 touchdowns to just 3 picks. And if you look at some of the other great seasons of the last 15 years, Aaron Rodgers put 0.3% in 2018. He had 25 touchdowns, 2 picks. Brady in 2016, 28 touchdowns, 2 picks. And then Brady again in 2010 had 36 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Lamar Jackson, 41 touchdowns and 4 interceptions this year. So just some rare quarterbacking in terms of not turning the ball over, throwing a lot of touchdowns. Obviously, Justin Herbert threw 4 interceptions in that playoff game, so that kind of renders his little section moot. But I think we got to appreciate what Lamar Jackson did in this.
I'll do you one further. There were 387 interceptions thrown this year, which was the fewest in the NFL since 1982, which was a strike season.
That was the year I was born, Craig.
Oh, look at that.
Great year. Great vintage. That was a strike season. And so this is the least amount of interceptions they've thrown.
In 40 years.
That's because I think running is a little resurgent. Quarterbacks are better than ever. And then they have all these screen passes that are part of the run game, I guess. That's interesting.
One of my favorite stats here, this is going to be a mini category inside the half-assed internet research category. It's called the Adele Parkenbark Award for the least mobile quarterback. And I'm giving that to Kirk Cousins.
Nice.
The Atlanta Falcons were not credited with a single touchdown pass this season using play action, which is the first time that's happened since PFF tracked the data in 2005.
Wow.
That's a good one. I thought you were going to say the one where Kirk Cousins completed 2 passes outside the pocket this year.
That is I think that's actually a good illustration though of why not being able to move around as a quarterback severely hamstrings your offense. And that's exactly what happened in New York with the Jets. Just not being able to be deceptive on offense, really, it makes it hard.
It also makes the pass rush better because it's like Battleship, where it's it's kind of just cheating in Battleship. And, Micah Parsons, whoever's the defensive end, is oh, I know exactly where I have to go.
Right.
But if you move, then they have to think about it. It makes it so much harder if you're the offensive tackle to block for those people. I would like to do another segment inside of a segment, unless your segment's not over. My segment inside half-assed internet research is the Austin Gale burning down the rainforest to find statistics about how bad Deshaun Watson is.
Yeah.
And Deshaun Watson,
to be clear, he's running so many server farms and stuff. It's using all this energy they just had to burn down the Amazon rainforest,
blowing out the internet grid to figure out plumbing the depths of the internet. And so when Austin Gale, the first 6 weeks of the season, if you look at the first 6 weeks of the season by EPA per play, by EPA, by almost anything you look at, not only was Deshaun Watson worse than Jamarcus Russell, Deshaun Watson was the worst quarterback in the history of the Cleveland Browns. I'm going to say that again. Think about that jersey with the 35 names. Like, think about that.
Wild.
Picture the jersey with the 35 names that the fan keeps putting on. Deshaun Watson is the worst one of all 35. The Browns offense with Deshaun Watson this season was the worst offense in the history of the Cleveland Browns. The worst Browns offense ever. And then Deshaun Watson tore his Achilles.
And then he tore it again.
And then he tore it again.
He has a $73 million cap hit next year and a $73 million cap hit in 2026.
Unless the Browns can get out of some of it because of the injury clause.
Yeah, there's something there. I don't know.
I do have a Browns one too.
Yeah.
All right. Can you guys guess which teams have won the AFC North more recently than the Cleveland Browns?
Oh, this is going to be some team who wasn't even in the division.
So the Ravens won. The Ravens have won it more recently than the Browns,
Yep.
the Steelers, and the Bengals. So too have the Tennessee Titans,
God.
the Jaguars,
Oh, geez.
these teams have been in the AFC South for 26 years. Even the Houston Oilers have won the AFC North more recently than the Cleveland Browns.
Wow. What year was that?
I don't even know. I don't even know.
The records don't go back that far, Craig.
Yeah.
The Houston Oilers.
Wow.
It's just tough.
We've discovered climate change and done nothing about it since that happened, and the Browns have not won the AFC North.
Speaking of bad quarterback play, there's another Anthony Richardson stat that kind of tickled me. He completed 34% of his passes at 10 or more yards down the field. 34% of his passes, 10 or more yards down the field, which was not only the lowest rate in the league this year. Since 2010, the only people to do worse than that are Deshaun Kaiser and Tim Tebow.
That is horrendous.
Tebow.
That is horrendous.
34% of his passes, 10 yards down the field. Dude.
My buddy sent me this stat the other day. Speaking of Tebow, Tim Tebow is the only quarterback drafted by the Broncos to have won a playoff game for the Broncos.
They beat the Steelers. I remember it. Demaryius Thomas, game-winning overtime.
That play, they had run that motion 22 times, and they ran it all 22, and Ryan Clark stepped up, and the 23rd time they threw it, and that's why he was so open.
Pretty wild. That was like that made me look back and I'm like, oh, I forgot about the whole Elway drama when he got drafted.
he got drafted by the Colts, and he was like, I will literally go play for the New York Yankees if you don't trade me. He literally like,
if you want, I'd rather die.
He had the Kyler Murray. He was a first round pick in both, and he was like, I'm just going to play fucking center field.
The other thing I thought was interesting is, do you remember at the beginning of the year? It's like, I can't remember, you know what I mean? Like, it's been such a long season, you kind of forget like when we were talking about this stuff, but like there was a lot of talk that offenses suck now at the beginning of the year, and like for big chunks of last year, teams scored 22.9 points per game this year, which is the 7th highest ever. So much for that talking point. Scoring is fine. I will say a big part of scoring is that there were more field goals made this year than ever. So that's not my favorite thing.
A third of the 60-yard kicks ever made have been made in the last 20 months.
Yeah. But I think the bottom line is like all the fretting and hand wringing, and I was part of that over like offenses in the NFL in general. I think was probably a big overreaction.
Heifetz, give us a couple.
A third of the way through the season, the Bengals had the number one offense in EP per play in the entire 21st century, and their defense was the worst in yards allowed per play in the entire 21st century at the same time.
God.
Best offense and worst defense of the century. The other one, this one kind of think describes the fantasy season well. Last year in 2023, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel had 40 touchdowns, and this year they had 4.
Wow. That's wild.
I saw one that was fun. Kenny Golladay and Cooper Kupp were drafted the same year and have the same amount of 1,000-yard seasons, too.
That feels impossible. That feels impossible.
So do with that what you will.
What was the Cooper Kupp stat that I had? It was like Juwan Jennings had more yards receiving than Cooper Kupp this year.
Yeah.
Which I think is just crazy to think about.
I also want to just, while we're doing stats, I have to mention this was the year the Cloyce box went down. A lot of Cloyce box records fell. Jameson Williams, the Lions record for 60-yard catches in a season, broke Cloy's box in
I love that
1952.
this is the year he went down. He finally fell.
Cloy's finally fell. His empire. Josh Allen had the 93 fantasy points in the 2 weeks. It was the fifth most across any 2-game span in history. It broke the record Cloy's box set in 1950. Or sorry, no, he did. He almost approached Cloy's box's record in 1950. That one's still standing.
Oh yeah,
Cloy's box the GOAT. 100 points.
Cloy's
box.
the box is broken finally. After
The box,
70 years.
The box descendants are proud somewhere.
Oh my God.
Did you guys know this isn't even like a this is just a straight number, but it just kind of blew me away as I was looking through things. Wandale Robinson caught 93 passes this year.
Yeah.
It's kind of didn't think about him one time.
He is the prototypical PPR scam.
Wandale Robinson to me is a good example of he caught the passes because every time the Giants had a third down, they were like, well, just let him throw it.
Dump it off for 3 yards.
Double neighbors, let him throw to Wandale and we'll tackle him. And they just did every time.
Yeah.
You know how like people in Wall Street or whatever will set up these schemes where they can like do micro trades with like once a second or whatever, like these really fast things just so they make really small margins and it adds up over time. That's like the version of like Wandale Robinson in fantasy.
Then Michael Lewis wrote a book on that.
Flash Boys,
right.
baby.
Yeah, I read that. It kind of went over my head like 5 years ago when I read that. Not gonna lie.
I just remember that they blew up a mountain because they needed the fucking cables to be straight.
Yeah. High frequency trading. I was like, what?
This has nothing to do with football, but while we're half us into research, can I read you? Tim Urban tweeted this incredible thread about being in 2025 on New Year's Day. Did you guys see this?
No.
Wait, what?
So this is not about football, but while we're in half-assed internet research, it just stats. Tim Urban was basically about we're 2025 now. We're a quarter of the way through the 21st century. Mm-hmm. And so among the things he said, even if lifespans stay as they are now, many of today's college students will live to see the 22nd century. And a lot of the babies being born today will be still like running companies when they're 21 in the year 2100.
DK, that's Calvin.
Yeah, like Calvin will be like, if we don't even expand like the idea that like Jerry Jones and Joe, like Calvin will still be like working in 2100 if he wants to be. The other one, 2040 is closer than 2010.
Ugh.
2060 is closer than 1990.
No.
And so
I
2060
refuse to believe that one.
Is closer than 1990. In Sync, tearing up my heart, came out closer to the moon landing than it did to today.
Stop. Make it stop.
E.T.
these are wild.
How do I turn this off?
E.T. hit theaters closer to the 1930s than today.
Okay.
Billy Joel, She's Got Away, was released closer to World War I than today.
I always say, like, you always look at like the 1900s. It's such a, seminal century in the history of the earth. So many crazy fucking things happened in the 1900s. And I feel like a lot of times it's like you separate it into like the decades and stuff. And so like the 1940s is like obviously World War II, the 1960s, Vietnam. And like every decade has like a very distinctive like pop culture, very distinctive style, very distinctive whatever. Like the history is so vivid and whatever. And now it's like you tell me these stats where it's like we're further away now to the moon landing or whatever it is, and I'm just like, it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't feel like any of these decades in this century have any like specific personality. They just blend together to me. Maybe we're too close to it still, but like it feels like the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s all had extremely distinctive vibes and music and styles and history and all that stuff.
There's
now
something.
When you think about it, I'm like,
that.
I don't know what the fuck has happened in the last 20 years.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's like we're too close to see it just yet, but I also think that there has been like a flattening of culture because of our ability to like look back and blend old to new, that everything's kind of at once and everyone's kind of doing their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I do think there's something to the fact that time feels like it's moving, like things feel further away. And I know that part of that is like just the nature of getting older. But I do wonder sometimes about like that person who keeps the master clock at the U.S. Naval Observatory. Like I've told you guys about this, where like there's actually a master timekeeper.
Specific jobs.
Basically, yeah, they have a cesium atom clock, and their job is to like keep everyone's time zones like actually on the And this person was asked, "What is time?" And they were like, "It's just the distance between events. Like that's what time is." And I think your phone makes more events in your life. Like the act of scrolling, I think, is what makes us disassociated with time, because we are experiencing the illusion of more things happening. And so when you're like, oh my God, like that's why I think we all have a very post-COVID, like bad sense of how long, when things happened.
Right. I can see that.
Like we're unmoored
It's like
from how
overload
things have
almost.
actually,
You become numb to it.
Totally. Brain rot. It all glazes over.
Yeah.
Brain rot. We have a severe case of brain rot.
Okay, next up, Apex Mountain. Who is having their career year? Professionally, personally, both. Sadly, Heifetz, Saquon Barkley this is absolutely Apex Mountain for Saquon Barkley.
1,000,000%.
Josh Allen, still, even if he doesn't win
I think
MVP?
so.
Has to be.
So.
He got engaged. And
Got
then
engaged to Haley Steinfeld.
Like it has to be Josh Allen.
Yep.
Do you guys know 80 years ago today, Lieutenant Ronald Spears made his legendary run through the town of Foy, Belgium?
That's fate.
Yeah, there you go.
Wow.
For the people that don't know what I'm talking about, I compared, if you've watched Band of Brothers, this guy, Lieutenant Ronald Spears, like makes this crazy ass run through like enemy territory, and then he runs back, and it just reminds me of Josh Allen when he goes on his epic runs. So yeah.
So you say the Chiefs are the Nazis, and he's just rumbling through enemy territory?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly.
Kickers, Apex Mountain for kickers, 2024.
Yeah. God damn.
I think the first month of the season was absolutely Apex Mountain for kickers, because they were making 50-yarders at like a 90% clip, and like, you know, the NBA free throws are like 87% or whatever, and then they kind of super fell off.
Lamar Jackson?
I think he could be up there, but it's hard because he's had so many highs, you know, multiple MVPs.
What about Sam Darnold? A week ago, we would have said yes.
Yeah, honestly, if we had done this show originally scheduled instead of like because the fires messed it up, we would have said Apex Mountain for Sam Darnold, and now it's like,
not have aged well.
Yikes!
But it
was.
Actually, it might have aged well because that was the absolute apex.
It still kind of is his Apex Mountain. And I guess maybe it was just like his last year in college at USC. Maybe.
Yeah. Did they win the Rose Bowl that year? That was maybe he had a crazy.
Give me a couple. What do you guys have? DK.
I just had Josh Allen.
Yeah,
and I think Saquon's a good answer.
Yeah. Okay. All right. The opposite. Kyle Pitts, Death Valley Award. Who is having the nadir of their career? There's a lot of options.
I hate to say it, but Kadarius Toney, the moment in time, what was it? He got a penalty on a fair catch of a punt, and then he muffed it. What I can't even remember. It was like such a terrible sequence of events. I've blocked it from my mind. He got a penalty on a fair kick, and then he muffed a punt later in the game, and then he got cut several days later. I don't think he's on a team anymore. So I'd say him.
Aaron Rodgers.
100%.
Even though he has a Enigma documentary?
I'm 2 episodes in. It's good. There's something to it. The second episode is batshit crazy. You have to watch it. You're like,
does he do ayahuasca in the doc?
Yes.
Batshit crazy.
The whole second episode is them on the cameras are with him on his ayahuasca retreat.
I'm stepping on unanswerable questions here, but what do you guys think ayahuasca is like?
I have no idea. I don't really know what it is.
Based on the documentary, it says it's like 10 times more powerful than any other hallucinogen.
The way I've always thought of it is it was kind of like DMT. And I don't know. It's the irony is that like I feel like he did it years ago. Like, I don't know. Does Roger strike you as someone who recently experienced ego death? Because not really to me.
No. I will say that the stuff about him winning the Super Bowl and then being like, I feel nothing was interesting.
That is interesting to me. I do want to hear about that.
That's like basically what started his journey to self-discovery.
It's, you know, if only he could have encountered literally any piece of art ever about anything where someone's like, I got the thing I wanted, and wasn't happy. It's like even Billie Eilish had a fucking song about that when she was like fucking 17, bro.
There is a funny part of that doc though, when he talks about how like the media always goes after him or whatever, and he tries to debunk a few moments where he got killed. And there was a couple that were funny where he was like, The Bachelor, his brother Jordan Rogers was on The Bachelorette, and he ended up winning. He married JoJo, and at the end of the show, when there's only a few people left, they have to go to their hometowns. So they went to Jordan Rogers' hometown and they had dinner. JoJo, Jordan, and Aaron Rodgers' parents. And as the way they shoot it, they're at a dinner table, a square dinner table, and there's 2 empty seats on one side of the table. And it was like, that was for Aaron and whoever he was dating at the time. Which is like just honestly fucking hilarious in general that like they would do that. It's very good producing. But Aaron Rodgers was like, I got killed for that. Like I denied.
Dude.
He was like, one, not only did they not invite me to that dinner, I also wouldn't have gone even if they did invite me. But like, you really got to leave two empty chairs there at this fucking dinner? Like, are you kidding me? And I was like, that's fair.
That's fair. Honestly, that's fair.
I
I'll give
kind
him
of get
that.
that.
Yeah,
That's
like,
fair.
all right.
I'll give him that. I will say though, nothing triggers me quite like Aaron Rodgers insisting he's getting canceled. And I'm like, you're getting paid like $80,000 a week to go on ESPN for like 20 minutes every week.
Mhm.
And you're like, oh, they're silencing me. I'm like, you're the least silenced athlete there's ever been. There's actually no one's ever had their voice be more widely spread ever in the
Can't get him
professional
to shut
sports.
up.
Not since Muhammad Ali has someone's words
Netflix
been
is
more
showing
widely
us-
spread.
Netflix is showing us on his ayahuasca retreat for
Yeah.
millions of people to see.
Do you know how much more money? Like you know how much money you're being paid for us to hear? Like, no, all we fucking hear is what you say. The least canceled person ever. Jesus. Anyway.
That was really funny. The other Kyle Pitts Death Valley Award, Deshaun Watson.
Ooh.
I think
again.
I would
Yeah.
argue this is the lowest anyone has ever been, maybe ever. Like at least anyone who's ever had like $100 million. All
P. Diddy.
right, that's a good point. He's in the lowest circle of celebrity hell.
He is. That he has to be. I mean, he's probably the winner of this category. I don't know. Other nominees.
Yeah.
This is like
He
not
needs a
close
different
at all.
category.
He does. In terms of football, Justin Tucker,
Ooh.
right?
Yeah.
It
tough.
was certainly the worst moment of their career. That's 100% true.
Is there a case to be made for Tom Brady?
I mean, it has to be the worst year of his career outside of like
Craig, you're
either-
certainly pushing it.
I'm peddling this ideology.
Yeah, Craig, you
I
might
mean-
have something to do with this.
I mean, look, it would be hard to say any year of his career. I guess maybe the year he tore his ACL. Maybe.
He's making a lot of money.
We're
through
making
this
the
stuff.
most fun of him, but he thinks this year's a success because he bought the Raiders. And part of me thinks he doesn't even want to do the announcing. And like, he just used the announcing money to fund him buying the Raiders. And so like, I think he's kind of
Ponzi.
like joke's on you. Yeah.
Maybe, but just maybe in terms of perception, I don't know. Shitty announcer. He had the roast this year where he had to listen to people tell his kids how their mom is fucking a jiu-jitsu instructor.
That's like tough for the kids. He seemed like he was enjoying all the jokes though.
Yeah, maybe. I think you got
Only the Bob
face.
Kraft stuff offended him. Only the Bob Kraft getting a hand job 5 years ago really bothered him. Everything
Those
else
awful
was-
commercials. I think there's a case to be made. There's a
I
case.
actually think Bob Kraft, this is probably Death Valley Award. I mean, Bob Kraft launching this whole like smear campaign against Bill Belichick to basically erase Bill Belichick from a Super Bowl, like the 6 Super Bowls they won, and then ending with having to fire Gerard Mayo, the handpicked successor that he'd chosen years earlier after 1 year because it's embarrassing. Like, tough.
Any others, DK?
Derek Carr?
Oh, he's had worse.
Yeah, I don't know. That's
I
reaching.
would. Will Levis,
Hmm.
Anthony Richardson.
But that's like Will Levis was never that high. I feel like it's just like not that no one cares.
Every guy who got drafted, it sucked. Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah.
I have one other Death Valley one. What about the New York Giants? New York
Wow.
football.
Wow. I mean, this year, Drew Lock did have the greatest New York Giants quarterback performance ever.
43 fantasy points.
He's like among Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Aaron Rodgers with the best EPA per play since 1999.
Do you think the shades moment, like whatever week that was a few weeks ago, with like the sun shining into the stadium, was the nadir for Jerry Jones? When he's talking about he knows where the sun is a year ahead of time, almost
a year.
almost a year ahead of time,
Luckily, we find that out almost a year in advance.
almost a year.
Like it is exactly 11 months in 1 week. It's Deshaun Watson and Aaron Rodgers at
Yeah.
silver. Best fantasy team name you heard or saw online. Do you guys have any that you thought were funny? I can rattle through a couple.
Yeah, I don't know if I have any on this one.
What is your fantasy name strategy? You two, actually, I'm curious.
Well, I've given my strategy, which is to call my fantasy team name my first and last name,
Well,
so
you
people
have
will know
30
whose team
teams.
it is.
You have 30 teams, and you're like mad when people's name
It's
isn't
like I don't want
the
to
team
fucking
name.
cross-reference all these random-ass weird names to figure
Well,
out
then don't
who's
be in
who.
30 leagues.
Yeah, too late.
So in all 30 leagues, your team name is Danny Kelly's team.
No. I mean, in most of them, yeah.
But do you go inappropriate? Do you go player name pun? Do you do inside joke among the group? Movie
Usually
quote?
inside joke.
Okay. Heifetz, what's your strat?
It depends on the group I'm with. I even in reach, I actually like having, I used to do all like player name puns, but now I kind of like having like a consistent one. Like my oldest league, it's not a keeper or redraft league. It's just it's not a keeper dynasty. It's just a regular redraft league, but I keep it. I am the mighty Melonheads in a fantasy baseball league and a fantasy football league. Cause that's like backyard baseball back in the day. Like, remember that game? Backyard football. So I just love the mighty Melonheads consistency. And then now every league I've joined in the last few years, people make fun of me for this being my job. So
I enjoy a good player pun. My team name this year was Brat Summer, Breeze Fall. I liked Neighbors Think I'm Selling Dope. That was a name in my league.
Oh, that's good.
And
That's
then
good.
one that my buddy Scott came up with, shouts out Bay Area rappers. He was like, he just texted the group like in week 10 and was like, has anybody come up with this name before? And it's, I'm in the building, Adam feeling myself. You know the Mr. Fab song? I'm in the building and I'm feeling myself. I thought I'm in the building, Adam feeling myself is so good.
That's pretty good. That's really good.
Also, Amon Ra Dog, your flight.
Oh.
Oh, well, that'll be DK Rice soon.
Okay. Best quote, best soundbite or moment from the season.
DK just said it though. Jerry Jones, we know where the sun is almost a year in advance.
Oh, that's so good.
That was like my favorite moment from the whole season, honestly.
We
laughed for like 20 straight minutes from that.
Yeah.
I went back and re-experienced that. But like the other gem was we know where the sun is almost a year in advance. And then someone said, why not put curtains up? And he turns to them and says, well, let's just tear the damn stadium down, build another one. Are you kidding me?
Can just put curtains up. You don't have to tear it down. You don't have to build a new one.
That's like when you're like losing a board game and before it's over, you just like hit the board game off the table. That's like, I guess we'll just tear down the whole stadium.
Where's the sun? Where's the moon?
Oh my God. His star receiver is like begging him to put up fucking curtains. And he's like, no, I'm not putting up curtains. I refuse.
I think we can't give it to Brady because there's too many. There's not one iconic Brady call that sticks out to me, right? It's just a kind of an amalgamation of shitty
I think
calls.
we needed this is different. We need a category of just best Craig impression of the year between like Gus Johnson, Brady, JFK.
I will say the best quote might be, the Jerry Jones probably wins, but the Gus Johnson, yeah, Jack Sawyer, Sawyer, the hero.
I mean, the fact that then Jack Sawyer later actually won a game by fumble sixing in the semifinal, incredible for us. The hero.
That probably wins. No, we'll give it. It's Jerry Jones talking about knowing the sun.
It is Jerry Jones. That's the revert of this category. But there's other ones we have to talk about here.
Jameis Winston, Lord, deliver me from these pick sixes.
And then they benched him. Careful what you wish for there, big guy.
Sirianni bringing all his kids to the press conference to avoid getting fired.
Human shields.
So good. Savvy. The more I think about it, the more Nick Sirianni might be a genius. I don't know.
Dude, my Siri on my phone it just went off because I said Sirianni.
We didn't talk about this one a few weeks ago, but this was an all-time quote. Russell Wilson, when he blew that game in week 18 against, I can't remember who the hell they played. The Bengals? No, I can't remember. Yeah, the Bengals. They lost on Saturday night.
Yeah. When it went through Freiermuth's hands. Yeah.
Yeah, and they blew the game. And he sits down at the press conference and they ask him about the game and he says, I don't want to talk about the past.
Hell yeah.
I don't believe
give me the game.
I don't believe philosophically in press conferences.
I have decided I'm going to do this every time I'm wrong going forward.
I don't want to talk about.
Remember when you were like out on Joe Burrow's wrist and then he like led the league in yards? Why do we have to talk about the past?
That was like when Denzel was on Bill's pod and Bill was like, man, remember Training Day? And he's like, I don't like talking about my old movies. And they were like, he's like, okay.
Whoop. Woo.
That's good. Yeah. Josh Palmer, man, you missed on that. Yeah, that was in the past. Focus on the future.
The past. Woody Johnson, the Jets owner, saying thinking is overrated.
He's got a point.
Does he? Yeah, I guess he does.
Did you guys have more? I have a bunch more.
Hit me.
Jim Harbaugh telling the Chargers he remembers the day he was born.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Dude, he literally told
Jim
them that
Harbaugh,
he remembered it.
what the fuck, man? Harbaugh's he's like the weirdest person in the world.
Even his catchphrase like doesn't hit home for me, which is the attack every day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. I feel like that's not that good of a quote.
Yeah,
That's too wordy.
like SpongeBob. It's too wordy. It's too enthusiastic to take
Also,
notes.
I just what does that even mean? Enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
The best part though about when he remembered I was remembered I was born. He told his whole team, he's like, I remember coming out and everyone's staring at me and all right, we're ready to go. And all the players were like, yeah, isn't that crazy? Like they believed him. He does not remember that. He definitely made it up.
I believe he remembers it.
There was a time when he was the 49ers head coach and the Seahawks were like hardcore. It was like a super good rivalry during the early 2010s. And I hated Jim Harbaugh so much. I appreciate him a lot more now. But I was like, this guy is the fucking weirdest motherfucker I've ever heard.
He's weird.
But I like him now. He's much funnier when he's not like the head coach of your rival team.
Another quote, this also aged the best. When Chris Olave was asked in training camp if there's anything about the offense that excites him, and he said, no.
Yeah, we should listen to Ohio State receivers, turns out.
That's like the quote of George Pickens after the playoff loss. And they were like, do you have optimism going into next season? And he was like, nah.
Nope.
Nah.
Yeah, we should remember that.
So good.
Nah.
Did you see growth over the last few years? Yeah, sure, I saw growth. So do you feel optimistic for next year? Nah.
What? Oh my God.
This isn't so while we're on quotes from the season, I don't know if this is a quote. Is it a quote to when Shannon Sharp went live on Instagram while he was having sex?
Oh my God. This is like the perfect example of there's just too much news now. There's too many things happening in the
happened in 1982.
In the Donald Trump era, nothing can shock you at all. No. You know what I mean? It's just the craziest thing happens literally every day in the world. The fact that he went live, I don't know who he's having sex with. His wife, I assume. I don't know who it was, but
I don't know about that.
Not that.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. To each his own.
DK, you're so right. I don't even know if I sent that to friends. I know so
it's
unmoved
it doesn't even fucking nothing registers.
It doesn't register. Yeah, it doesn't.
That was 10 minutes of my day. I was like, oh.
It was not 10 minutes of his day. It was less than that.
Yeah.
I listened to it.
Normalize that.
I listened to it. Did you guys listen to it?
I did. I almost asked Kai and Carlos to make it a sound drop, and I was like, this is too far.
I won't repeat any of the words he said, but a lot of grunting.
Oh my God. Yeah, a lot of grunting. Quote of the year. The other, but here's the thing. We're in a world where not only did he not really get punished by ESPN or whatever from that, and it didn't register, the next week, Adam Schefter goes on Kevin Clark's show. And then Kevin asked him, where's the weirdest place you broke a story? And Adam Schefter's like, well, he literally said, and I quote, I can remember being in Denver one time. How do I say this? I had just spent time with this woman for the first time and got a text that Dale Carter was being suspended for 8 games for substance abuse.
Nothing shocks me anymore. I'm numb.
Yeah. In general, I think I love hearing about I think they did this in Entourage where it's just celebrities are just having sex and they're just on their phone or taking calls. I find that to be very funny.
Do you think DiCaprio was ahead of the curve with the AirPods while he's having sex?
Do you think that whole thing, he has the over-ear headphones, noise canceling? What? I would love to know if that was just a dumb rumor that got spread or if he actually does that. He plays Scrabble after. There's a whole thing about him.
Unanswerable questions. So what's the best quote? Is it Jack Sawyer the hero? Is it Jerry Jones, we know where the sun is almost a year in advance, or is it Shannon Sharp grunting during sex?
I think
alligator.
I think it's Jerry.
Yeah.
I think it's Jerry.
I think it's Jerry.
Yeah.
Okay, picking Nits. There's too many games. Too many games this year.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
The Christmas corridor was genuinely a gauntlet, as was this past weekend, where we had games Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, including college football. The problem here is that college and the NFL are in a fight right now for our attention, and both of them are winning.
Yeah.
That's an issue.
Yeah.
And everything's just going to keep expanding. They're going to add more teams to the college football playoff. We're going to get We're going to get 18 games in the NFL season, which probably means 2 bye weeks, which means they're really going to add 2 more weeks, which means the Super Bowl is going to be on President's Day weekend, which in theory sounds cool because Monday's off the next day. But I'm not sure I can take it. I'm not sure I can take that. And I know Heifetz, you hate when I do that, but I the college mixed with the pro now is getting really difficult.
I mean, Craig, you've mentioned this before. I think in part of the NFL secret sauce is there's not like it's not there is such thing as too much of a good thing, right? Like the scarcity of NFL games is actually one of its strongest variables. You know what I mean? Like every game is so impactful. Every game matters. The 16-game season in my mind was like the perfect spot.
But what's nice though for the NFL, you're right about that, and it makes people who cover the NFL, they have to work more. But for the average fan, I don't know if they're upset about any of this because you don't have to watch every game if you're an average fan. It might be more fun to know, like, oh,
there's always something to watch.
Yeah, maybe like 4 out of the 7 days a week, there is a big college football or big NFL game on. Like maybe they like that and they don't have to watch it. They don't have to. For people who are watching the sport more consistently like us, it's tough out there for the spouses.
Right.
Ain't no apple picking weekends anymore.
Yeah. As Bill would say, it was a don't get divorced week when it was like college football playoff Thursday, college football playoff Friday.
It's been a don't get divorced month.
Monday. Yeah, it's true.
Right.
Yeah. Football Christmas. Tough.
Yeah. What are some picking nits you guys have?
I just would like to say I could have done without all the procedural penalties that the NFL decided to randomly make a huge focus this year.
Refs.
For no reason at all. Yeah. Stop making up rules for no reasons at all.
Okay.
No, I'm tempted to go the other way and say, actually, it's the opposite. My picking it is that part of human condition is nobody's grateful for anything, and that the refs actually fixed instant replay kind of a lot, and no one cares. But it's not about just the refs.
But that's not picking. What's picking nits about that?
Picking nits about people. I think that my
society
nit is with everybody in society.
I got a problem with you people.
There are 3
Heifetz
things.
Is going Joker.
There are 3 things with football that people were mad about my entire life. One of them is how long the instant replay would take to determine these things. The other 2 are college football players don't get paid, and college football playoff, like not enough teams are represented in the playoff. And this year, we had 12 teams in the college football playoff. Players are getting money, commensurate roughly to like what they're really worth. And it's complicated and it's messy and it's an imperfect system, but it's an imperfect life. And all I heard was fucking people whinging and complaining about the college football playoff. That all I heard my entire life was 25 years of people complaining that we don't have a college football playoff. And it got here and no one was fucking happy about it or excited. It was, and I know people were, but the point is that that's not things you vocalize or whatever. And I don't know why, but like, I'm trying to be more grateful for things. And I think I've just realized that the things we complain about when we get them, no one acknowledges it at all. Like no one acknowledges when things you complain about for years or decades are solved. No one cares. That's all.
They did screw Oregon though. That's a picking nit of mine. Yes. Man. Come on. My brother went to Oregon. I'm an Oregon fan. They got absolutely screwed. The only undefeated team has to play Ohio State first, a team they already beat. That makes sense. Anyway,
that's
now Ohio State's going to win the national championship.
Oregon, maybe. How many points were they down at halftime versus Ohio State?
It was like 31-0, I think.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's still bullshit. They would have had to play. They would have gone through Ohio State, Texas, and then I guess Notre Dame. Now it's a ridiculous path for the number 1 seed. College football playoff ruin the regular season.
That's kind of my point, though. It's like normalize, like, I don't know. Like, just basically people complain. I think in the digital sphere, the only thing that gets through are complaints, but there's no one's happy about anything. And maybe I need to accept that being miserable is part of the human experience.
Yeah.
Nobody likes a happy guy.
No, I think that's what I've learned. That's my nit. Is like, can anyone enjoy things? That's all.
Is there anything worse than somebody you know being really happy?
Yeah, I think, that's
relax, dude. That's an old Jim Carrey stand-up joke. It's like, oh no, is that happy guy coming over here?
That's how I feel. I have realized that saying I think the refs are doing better has been like an actually deeply divisive thing. Like people get like deeply angry when I say I think the refs are actually better now, and then people lose their fucking minds. That's all.
That's a good nit.
We need referees. You need referees. You cannot play the game without them. They have to exist.
Well, my nit is Terry McAuley's of the world.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Dean Blandino, who for some reason, I don't know why. Why don't we just make the ref in the booth, make him the head ref?
It's funny you say that because actually, I really do think what happened
Deputize him.
It's the hardest thing to watch on the field. If you're down on the field, it's just harder to see what's going on.
Well,
have him be in the fucking booth with 100 cameras, give him 10 seconds to look at it. He makes the call.
Well, that's what they do now in New York, basically. Like Terry McAuley's talking to the refs in the thing. But you're right when you point out how the refs are like, oh, wrong call there. I do think it's funny that like the best refs go to work for the TV networks for 4 times the money, 10 times the money with a quarter of the work. But then the best refs left. And I do think that's hilarious.
It's like David Chang walking around his own restaurant and looking at the meals and being like, undercooked, overbaked. It's like, what? Go get in the back. Okay, probably unanswerable questions. Is it a catch if somebody gets the same foot in bounds twice? I say yes. What say you?
I like this.
I stand by that forever. And the other one I have, because we've talked about that a lot, is oh no, I already hit this. Is Drake London the best wide receiver in the league that nobody talks about?
I think so. I was gonna ask, what if Andy Dalton hadn't got into that car crash that hurt his wrist?
Does Bryce Young's career happen?
Yeah, is Bryce Young just spiraling? Are the Panthers trying to like trade up for a quarterback? Is Dave Canales fired? Who knows what would have happened? Yeah. I just
On that note, do you think Bryce Young paid someone to hit Andy Dalton's car?
Right. Yeah. I think that's like one of the biggest sliding doors moments in the entire season.
That's a good one. And even if he got traded, do you think his career would have worked? Like if he got traded to the Raiders or the Steelers or something, do you think it would have worked?
No, because it's like I feel like that is like an inflection point for a lot of quarterbacks' careers is like once you get traded, it's like, ooh, very, very rarely does it work out from that point on because then you become a backup. And a lot of times it's just like that's sort of you're slotted into that role forever is like, I'll be a backup quarterback for the rest of the time. Like this is how I feel like once they let Daniel Jones go, I'm like, okay, so he's just now going to be a backup probably for the rest of his career.
Yeah.
Same with Justin Fields. After he got benched, he'll probably just be a backup forever now.
Heifetz, do you have one?
Unanswerable questions. So when the Saints interim coach, Darren Rizzi, the Rizzler, clogged the toilet on the first day he was coaching, do you think it was his fault or do you think it was like a weak toilet?
What do you generally? I feel like it is usually human error.
Well, always human error, but sometimes it's like the toilet's kind of primed and you don't realize it. Like sometimes the person before can kind of leave you in a tough situation.
Where they kind of notice it didn't flush right, but they leave it without doing anything.
They're washing their hands of this.
So do you think he was like nervously, absent-mindedly using 2 toilet paper because his mind was elsewhere, like he wasn't focused on the task?
Well, you'd have to think that these facilities have industrial toilets. I mean, they're dealing with NFL players, right?
It's like the flush is like so powerful.
Dude, to be honest, it's why
it's like a jet engine.
The Spotify office toilets are rocket ships. You could throw a puppy in there and it would suck it down.
Like Austin Powers 2, like you would just get sucked up in there.
Why did you choose a puppy?
I wanted to kind of paint a picture, but man,
how big of a puppy?
As much like whole toilet paper rolls, one after the other. You could just toss in there, sucking those things down. I love it. There's nothing worse than a weak toilet. You don't know how many wipes you get per flush, and then if you have to flush more, you're at somebody's house. You're in there for way too long.
Mice and men trying to drown puppies out here.
They're listening to the flushes. It's like Craig flushed 8 times in there. It's like, yeah, I'm not trying to clog it. All right, it's at my grandma's house.
It's called a
courtesy. How many puppies
flush.
How many puppies are you trying to drown?
I think it was the Rizzler's fault. I think he was on his phone, way too much toilet paper.
Yeah,
didn't think about it.
Let's think about other stuff.
Other unanswerable question I had is, do you think Brick Johnson is grinding this new College Football 25 video game to like set the Jets draft board?
I think that's answerable. I think he is, unequivocally. What would have happened if JJ McCarthy had not hurt his knee? What would the Viking season look like?
Probably the 1 seed.
I know. How would Anthony Richardson's season gone if he had just decided to stay in the game and hand it off,
or just lied about
caught his breath,
or just lied?
I'm curious, like how, like would they have benched him after that? Probably not.
He would have gotten tired on a couple plays later.
Yeah.
What would the Falcons have done if they just played Penix from the start? Again, this goes back to like he can't, Cousins can't move. It like neuters the entire offense.
Yeah. Those are good. Okay. Last two categories. Just one Oscar, where in the rewatchables, it's if you have to give an Oscar to one thing, person, the script, the director, anything, what would you give it to? For our purposes, we're going to give that the fantasy MVP. It's not who won the year, but this is the fantasy MVP. I think there's a handful of people that you could consider here and nominate. Starting from the bottom, I think Brock Bowers could be nominated. I think you have to factor in where they were drafted, right? But also just total output. Brock Bowers, I think, deserves a nomination. Jamar Chase certainly deserves a nomination. I think there is a real case to be made for Brian Thomas, the rookie on the Jags. It's hard to overstate how good he was. He had the best return on investment in fantasy this year. He was the 46th wide receiver off the board, going outside the top 100, and he finished 4th. Yeah. The only guys who outscored him were Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So
That's
I think there's
crazy.
A real shot that Brian Thomas should actually be the fantasy MVP. And I would almost argue he should get it, but it's still probably Saquon.
I don't know if it's so. ESPN does this interesting thing, and it kind of messed with my perception of who I chose for this because ESPN releases, and Tristan Cockcroft does this article at ESPN about the players who were just on the rosters of the most championship teams. And the player at the top was really surprising to me, and it's because of the huge end of season performance. But the player who won the most leagues was Jahmyr Gibbs on ESPN, at least. And he was on 29% of teams.
Berserk late in the season, right?
Yeah, like I think he had like almost 80 points in the semis.
He actually only had two fewer. If through 17 weeks, he had 2 fewer points than Saquon total.
And it's a funny answer because the first 14 weeks of the season, I don't think you would have been like Jahmyr Gibbs league winner, but like that's how it works. Like if you made it that far, like you won. But he was on basically 1 out of every 3 championship teams had Jahmyr Gibbs. And then after him, it's Jamar Chase, Lamar Jackson, Bucky Irving was 4th, and then Brock Bowers was 5th. But the difference is it's pretty stark. It's like Chase, Lamar, Bucky, Brock are all between like 21%, 19% of leagues, and Gibbs is 30%, which really messed with my perception of it because I wouldn't have picked Gibbs. But like,
Fantasy Points has a WAR stat: wins over replacement, a wins above replacement, and in basically every category in terms of like PPR, half PPR, tight end premium, non PPR. Saquon is number 1.
I think the difference though is not all the wins matter. Like the wins in December matter more, right?
But Saquon, week 16, he had 29 points. Week 17, he had 22. I mean, he closed for you.
I think it's Saquon.
Also, Brian Thomas, the last 3 games of the season for him, the last 3 games of the fantasy season were his 3 best performances of the year.
That's a good zag. I think the ROI argument is very valid for him.
Dude, week 15, 30 points. Week 16, 26 points. Week 17, 23 points. 3 best games of the year at fantasy playoffs.
But I don't think he was the MVP.
Was he? Yeah, it's hard.
I think
Most
his
valuable.
I think his best return on investment was probably true.
I also just Jamar Chase though as well. Like I as much as I want to get into Saquon, I kind of think it might have to be Jamar Chase. He won the Triple Crown in a year where all the receivers were bad. That's the other part of it is like there were a lot of good running backs this year, and there were a lot of paths to if you didn't have Saquon to like you still could have had like Derrick Henry, you still could have had Jonathan Taylor, you could have had David Montgomery for a little bit, like Jahmyr Gibbs, Bucky Irving. Like there were if you didn't have a good receiver, like you need receivers this year, it was like you had Chase, Jefferson, and Jefferson didn't necessarily have great semis. Amon-Ra, Chase, Jefferson, and after that, it was like you needed a Brian Thomas. Like it was a very small pool. So like, I kind of think it's Chase because odds are, I don't know. Odds are your team was. I would take Chase over Saquon.
You could make the argument it was Mayfield, just as long as we're throwing out names here. You got him undrafted. He ended up being the QB4 on the season, and I'm just looking at his playoff performance, 28, 22, 34.
I think it's hard to give it to a quarterback because if you're in a 1 quarterback league,
sure.
Like, I don't know, it's not that hard to have a good quarterback.
There's a reason Lamar, even though you paid a lot for Lamar, that Lamar is number 3 on this list of winning ESPN leagues. Like he's 3rd, which is pretty crazy.
We have to get out of here with an answer. I'm not going to let us leave without an answer.
I think we have to decide right now if we're talking about ROI or MVP of just like we have how much are we trying to factor in Brian Thomas?
I don't think it can be Brian Thomas.
If you're redoing the draft right now and you're like, I have to get this guy at his ADP, who is it?
Saquon.
I don't know. Part of me wants to say Brian Thomas, to be honest. If I can only have one pick.
He's not the MVP, though.
I think if we add in...
He's the wide receiver 4.
I think the part of this that we need to add in is the holistic experience of the joy that... I think the tiebreaker has to be the joy you had having this player on your team. Because there's a lot of players, and I think in that case it has to be Saquon or Chase. But like it's probably Saquon. Like if you had Saquon, because the first game, like the second game of the entire season, Saquon had 3 touchdowns. And so I think that Saquon having 2,000 yards and the Eagles and the memes, I think there are a lot of players that are all like very similar in how much they actually helped your season. But I think Saquon, I guess the argument for him to be is like, you had the most fun playing fantasy football this year with Saquon on your team.
Okay, but the next category to close this is who won the season, which is different than the fantasy MVP. Because I would argue Saquon Barkley won the season from a narrative perspective, from the vibes perspective, all the stuff that you were just talking about. Saquon, I think, won the season. Lamar and Josh Allen kind of split each other. And I mean, Jaden Daniels, maybe you could say, but like, it's got to be Saquon Barkley won the year in 2024 in the NFL, right? I mean, he could also win both. I think that's totally
I was going
fine.
to say Jamar or Lamar won the season.
Really?
I don't think Jamar won. You think Jamar won
He
the
didn't
season?
make the playoffs.
But no one cares about the
I guess
triple
we're
crown
talking
if you don't
about
make the playoffs.
the NFL.
No one
would
cares
say
about
Lamar.
triple.
Lamar, then he's going to win his 3rd MVP.
I think no, but I the real answer to this question is whoever wins this game, Bills Ravens, whoever wins that game won the season. And again, like basically, if they win that game and they go to the Super Bowl, even if they lose, like that person won the season. Like if they can beat Mahomes, but the problem is like we could say right now Lamar won the season. If Lamar loses to the Bills, no one gives a fuck about like he's Joel Embiid.
Also,
if they
this
lose
is
the season.
who won the regular season from a narrative. It's Saquon. What are we doing?
I think that's fair because Josh isn't going to be.
What
the
are we
MVP.
doing?
So
what did we choose for the MVP then? Did we choose Saquon?
Maybe we do both. Maybe he won fantasy and in the regular season.
It's weird because Saquon was gonna win the MVP, was gonna win the season, and then like him not going for the record in Week 18, I think like neutered it a little bit. But like, yeah, it's fair. I have no problem giving Saquon the MVP. I would argue the Giants lost the season more than Saquon won it. I think that people delighted in the joy of the Giants being bad more than people like actually appreciated what Saquon was doing. I kind of think Josh Allen. I would argue Josh Allen made it. I mean, that stretch where the snow game, getting engaged. I mean, he literally beat the Chiefs and Mahomes, went on bye, proposed to Haley Steinfeld, and then came back, beat the Niners. Those are the 2 Super Bowl participants. Beat the shit out of like those 2 teams, and then beat the Lions, who were the 1 seed. Like he beat the 1 seed this year and the Chiefs Super Bowl participant last year. Then last year NFC Niners, and then this year's 1 seed Lions in like a 3.5 week stretch.
That's fair.
I don't have any problem with giving it to Josh.
But if he loses next week, he's not the winner. So maybe we just give it to Saquon.
But right now, or based on the regular season, maybe it is Josh, and then the MVP is Saquon.
I have a hard time giving a running back the person who won the season. I know that that's like maybe a weird way of thinking about it, but it's like it's got to be Josh Allen or Lamar in my mind.
But you could argue Saquon. The argument for Saquon is that he restored the position as a place of respectability, which was like probably
it's like
hard
Henry
to do.
did some amazing shit too. Gibbs did some amazing shit too.
But Saquon was the face of it because he was kicked out. You know,
coupled with the narrative of like, I
guess it's a narrative-y thing. Yeah, I would vote Josh.
Josh for who won the season, Saquon for the fantasy MVP.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's the right way to end.
I like that we're snubbing Lamar in both of these.
People are going to be so mad. He's going to literally win his 3rd MVP.
Well, that's what the real MVP. That's what the money's for.
I tried.
That's what the real MVP's for.
Yeah.
Look, if he gets engaged to Sidney Sweeney, then maybe he'll win. But Josh Allen had this Seinfeld thing plus beating the Chiefs. Like, what can you do?
Beat the Chiefs again.
Yeah,
that would be helpful. Yeah,
the winner is whoever beats the Chiefs again. That we just.
Like we like didn't mention Mahomes like one time during this whole fucking show.
Good on us.
What's to mention?
People probably thrilled,
except for when he tore fucking Rashee Rice's knee. Yeah,
the real winners were the 3 of us.
Yeah, the friends we made along the way.
Thank you, everybody. That's it. A gauntlet. We did it. Fantasy Rewatchables. Thank you for bearing with us as we continue to fight the fires in LA, which delayed this episode. Things look to be getting a little bit better. But crossing our fingers, it's a little windy still here. So yeah, thank you to you too. Thank you to Kai and Carlos. Thank you to Austin. Thank you to Bill Simmons for letting us steal this format every year.
Yeah.
This format, like the sun, we know where it will be almost a year in advance.
We do.
Yep.
Thank you, of course, as always. We couldn't have done the season without him. The Fantasy Rewatchables would not exist without him. Thank you, Lauren. Heifetz, you got to go, Lauren.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, shit. Lord.
Thank you, Daft Punk.
Ooh, nice.
Dude,
I love Daft Punk.
I was re-listening to the Kendrick Drake rat like the beef songs in order.
Okay.
And honestly, one of the funniest lines I forgot about was Kendrick's like, "You're gonna have to walk around the whole year like Daft Punk."
Wear a helmet.
It's like, yes. Should we do that? Should that be our thing? Should we just start all just wear helmets for like the whole?
That's cool. Like Marshmallow or Deadmau5.
Yeah. Should we just be like the helmet podcaster guys?
Really tough. It'd be really tough for audio, but I'm sure Kai could make it work. Kai and Carlos.
Yeah.
We're just in a fucking helmet. We're like all in mascots trying to go on.
Have you seen that video going around of them? I forget, and we'll actually never know their real names, but the two of them in France at what looks like a college library, just like playing their most famous song in like 2002 and people, or like 1997, and like people are just losing it, and like it's just they're playing it in France, and like it's just like 5 years before they released it.
Oh wow, no, that's cool.
No, I thought
I
that
saw
was
the same video with MGMT.
I thought that was MGMT. I think Heifetz might be conflating the two.
What?
They're playing Electric
Shit.
Feel, I think.
Yeah.
Well, that's the what?
It's definitely MGMT that he's talking about.
Well, that's the problem. I don't know their names, so I just kind of thought it was Daft Punk. Shit.
One of them is
Just-
Daft. The other
just-
guy's Punk.
European white dudes playing techno music.
Shit.
Sorry.
Oh, it
That-
was.
Also,
it
Also,
was
MGMT are Americans, right?
It was MGMT. Well,
It was in
I don't know how I
Connecticut,
retconned
they
myself to think this was Daft Punk.
It's all right.
I mean, both electronic music-ish. I don't know.
Electric Feel, great song also.
Hell yeah.
Daft Punk's better though. Are they going to make another album or what?
Not
Daft
sure.
Punk? Which one? Daft Punk or MGMT?
Daft Punk.
When's the last time they came out with an album?
I do not know.
We still don't know who these guys are. Is that correct?
No, we know. Well, we know who they are, but
Oh.
they've done. I think they kind of got it figured out. To be honest, I think they did the best job at being famous.
Interesting.
Like, I really think that like there's something to reaching that level of like global, like incredible celebrity. Like the music's incredible. But like, I don't think any of us would walk into. You could have a conversation with them at a Starbucks. You would never fucking know.
Oh,
right?
100%.
That's
Which
got to
is-
be the dream.
Yeah, it's the
But,
perfect kind of fame.
I don't think they're a band anymore. I think they disbanded.
They had an album in 2023, it looks like. Or no, they like
No, it
re-released some
says
stuff.
they were
Oh, that's
formed
just a
in
re-release.
93 and then disbanded in 2021.
Oh. Well, maybe they'll come back.
Yeah,
We can
maybe.
only hope. Okay. Goodbye, everybody.